What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Friday. TGIF action coming at you. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com. Got your Google and Alexa smart speakers, smart devices. The app, download it, take it on the go wherever you're at. And then, of course, video streams that are currently up and rolling on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. What do we got on a good old game plan for us this morning? We've got Dr. Crow going to be joining us in about an hour for a little inside the training room action. Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine will get his thoughts on Robert Gasser and his injury and such. We know it's a UCL injury, but it's a little bit of a different, different I guess, process. It's not torn, so I want to get his thoughts on, kind of what their game plan is going to be here. Even though one recommendation is surgery and such. So, we're going to talk to him in about an hour. We've got Brandon Berg going to be joining us coming up right after that. Plenty of Brewers talk with B and Brandon. And I think between him and I, we are going to kind of finalize our brackets for the most underrated Wisconsin sports athlete of all time. So we can kick that off. Tomorrow. Or Monday, excuse me. So we'll get to that. Plenty of fun stuff coming up with Brandon a little bit later on, including a little local sports roundup. Baseball yesterday, high school baseball. Big time shout outs and congrats goes to the Aleva Strum baseball team as they won their first state championship in program history yesterday as they defeated Solon Springs Northwood 11-1. So congratulations to Aleva Strum on bringing home a championship. Girls state soccer was also in action yesterday. Regis McDonald Saints fell in their game to Cedar Grove, Belgium, 6-0. So, but I know that's kind of the end of the prep season, such. So we'll kind of put a cap on that. But we still got other stuff going on, right? We've got the Eau Claire Express still in action. They hit the road yesterday to visit the Waterloo Bucks, and the Express picked up a 7-5 victory. They're back at it tonight on the road against Waterloo. So Brewers are also back in action tonight. They're going to be taking on the Cincinnati Reds for a 3-game series in Milwaukee. The Brewers currently holding on to a 6.5-game lead over the Cardinals. The Cardinals now are in sole possession of second place in the Central there. Cincinnati 7 back. Cubbies 7.5 back, and then you've got the Pirates who are sitting 8 back. So slated to get the start is going to be Freddie Peralta tonight. He's going to be going up against Green from the Reds. Abbott getting the start for the Reds on Saturday. Bryce Wilson slated to get the start on Saturday. Then Sunday, Colin Ray versus Montas for the Reds. So we'll take a look at this series before the crew head out west for a little West Coast trip, little Cali trip there. They've got series against the Angels and then the Padres before returning home on June 24th for a series against the defending World Series champs, the Texas Rangers. So we've got plenty of baseball talk coming up here. Want to throw a little football talk into this thing here too, because yesterday, or I should say last night in the NFL world, another quarterback got paid. It's not Jordan Love, but no doubt about it, it will affect and kind of give us some numbers of what Jordan Love's contract will look like. But Trevor Lawrence signing a long-term deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He agreed to a 5-year, $275 million contract. $275 million contract. 200 of that 275 guaranteed. 142 guaranteed at signing. When you look at the quarterbacks with the highest paid per year basis, and I know we can't necessarily look at that, but that's a factor for some quarterbacks. Maybe some quarterbacks aren't able to be the, quote, highest guaranteed paid quarterback, but they can be the highest per year. I mean, it's some of these players, and I think it's mostly agents, want that title for as little, for as short as it kind of lasts there. But Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow are the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL on a per year basis, $55 million. Jared Goff comes in at number 3 at 53. Justin Herbert, 52 and a half. Lamar Jackson, 52. Jalen Hurts, 51. So if we use, this is where I'm going to have a little bit of a poll question here for you and see where everybody is kind of at here. We're going to flip this into a Jordan Love Packers thing. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, $55 million apiece per year. Jared Goff, 53. Justin Herbert, 52 and a half. Lamar Jackson, 52. Jalen Hurts, 51. Of those quarterbacks, okay, how many? We're just using these 6. Okay, we're just going to look at these 6. The 6 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL on a per year basis. We're not going to factor in any other quarterbacks besides these 6. How many or who or which of these quarterbacks are you taking? If you had to take one for your team, are you taking ahead of Jordan Love? So when you look at this list, again, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. We're just looking at those 6. Who are you taking ahead of Jordan Love? Because let's face facts, whether you agree with it or not, it's going to happen. Love is probably going to get a contract in this range if we look at it from a per year basis. You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree with it, but it's going to happen. So which of these quarterbacks would you take ahead of Jordan Love? Like it's kind of ranking it. Maybe some of you wouldn't take any quarterback. Maybe Jordan Love's your number 1 out of those 6. And if you would, was it last week or a couple weeks ago? Mike Tannenbaum, he'd take Jordan Love ahead of all these quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is his first pick, but Patrick Mahomes isn't a part of this question, so he'd have Jordan Love at number 1 on this list by process of elimination. So, would you take Jordan Love ahead of Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, who's got a couple MVPs, Jalen Hurts, who has led his team to the Super Bowl, same as Jared Goff when he was with the Rams, nearly did it with the Lions? Where does Jordan Love kind of rack up on that list? And don't kind of rate it where you would pay him, but I'm just talking straight up talent-wise with this thing. Like, this is the quarterback you want to roll with for your team. And try to take the fanism part out of it. I know it's hard because majority listening right now are Packers fans. We got our Lions fans though too. So, but when you look at it, pretend you're a general manager and you're building your team from a straight up talent point. If we look at those 6, who's ahead of Jordan Love? Who would you take ahead of Jordan Love? Okay, so think about that and hit me up with some texts on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. All right, 715-830-1912. Again, 715-830-1912. Excited to see where a lot of the votes, the picks get, or go to, I should say, excuse me. So we'll see where it all kind of averages out. We'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit here too. So we got that. We got a little cream of the crop coming at you. You can make your picks too for a little cream of the crop if you like. Hit us up with those messages, whether it's on the video stream and or the text and line and all that fun stuff. Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, Florida picking up a 4-3 victory last night. They're out to a 3-0 lead between the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals. I'm sorry, but it's kind of been like, I know it was 4-3 last night, but I mean, both Florida and Boston out to 3-0 leads, and it's going to be short series is out there. So, but yeah, doesn't look like Edmonton unless they got something, up their sleeves where they can make an epic comeback there, but sure doesn't look like it. So, all right, let's get things started here, shall we? Let's get the lead off going here. We'll talk. U.S. Open too. I know we got that Rory McIlroy out there tied for first place and such. So the U.S. Open continuing. Tiger, we jinxed it. He was 4 over. Ended up 4 over. So I don't know where that cut line's at right now, but we got Rory, who's tied with first with Patrick Cantlay, who is he's up there too, ninth in the world rankings, but they're both at 5 under par. So keep it posted if there's any movement out there between these leaderboards and such. So, but we'll get it rolling here this morning. Coming up on the leadoff, we'll throw in a little baseball talk here, taking a look at the Crew with their series, previewing their series going up against the Reds. But also, I want to talk a little bit about this. If I'm Jordan Love's agent, I'm feeling pretty good again this morning. Looking at all right, Trevor Lawrence, he got that deal. Not saying Jordan Love's going to match it or get more, but I guarantee you it's going to be part of the conversation right now. I mean, I don't think Jordan Love's going to get 60 million per year, but it's a safe bet he's on the average per year. If we use that, he's going to get it in the 50s. It's going to be in the 50s. And I'll throw another question out there just to see where everybody's mind's at. Who do you think is going to be the first $60 million a year quarterback based off of the average per year? A lot of people think it's going to be Dak Prescott. A lot of people think it's going to be Dak Prescott. Who is going to be that first $60 million one? All right, let's get into it. TGIF, baby. Lead off coming up next. We'll throw in some baseball talk, mix in some baseball talk, get to your responses. You already got a few of them coming with the football question and such, which doesn't surprise me at all. So we'll get to your thoughts coming up after these few words as we begin the program with a little lead off coming up. Timing was perfect because apparently today is National Bourbon Day, and yesterday the experts joined me for an episode of the Man Cave podcast. Mark and Phil from Hy-Vee. So with Father's Day coming up this Sunday, if Dad likes bourbon, or maybe you're trying to figure out what to get Dad this year, what type of flavors and such, take a listen to the latest episode of the Man Cave podcast, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Mark and Phil give us a few options over there. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. And while you're there, if you could take literally just a few seconds to give it a 5-star rating and a positive review so others can find the podcast, well, I would really appreciate that. And that way, all the algorithms out in the world, I don't know how that whole thing works, but apparently that's how it works. So check it out. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss episodes, because sometimes we'll add a couple per day like we did yesterday, our Outdoor Tidbits with Jake. We're going to have a couple more episodes dropping on the Man Cave podcast today. So make sure you're subscribing. That way you never miss another episode. But perfect time. I didn't even know it was going to be National Bourbon Day until logged on to the good old Twitter, and that's a hashtag that's apparently trending. So if Dad likes his bourbon, Mark is the expert. Phil is an expert too. So go check it out. Good friends from Hy-Vee, and then stop out and buy and at Hy-Vee and grab Dad a bottle of bourbon, maybe some Man Cave Lights and Dad Good Burgers, and well, you got yourself an epic weekend right there. So, all right, so let's catch up right away. Opening up, we're going to talk some Brewers baseball and a little Packers and such, but a few texts already coming in throughout that question. With Trevor Lawrence's new deal. All right, with Trevor Lawrence's new deal right now, who are you taking? So if we use these top 6, okay, if we use only this list, how many of these quarterbacks are you taking over Love? These are the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL on a per year basis. Trevor Lawrence, 55 million. Joe Burrow, 55 million. Jared Goff, 53 million. Justin Herbert, 52.5 million. Lamar Jackson, 52 million. Jalen Hurts, 51 million. Of those quarterbacks, just those 6, because it's going to happen whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not. Jordan Love's going to probably more than likely get in the 50-some million dollar range per year. That's just it's going to happen. Which of these quarterbacks, if there's any, would you take over Jordan Love? Let's go through a few picks here. We've got let me bring it up because we've got both Twitter and the texting line going with this thing. We've got come on, load up this morning. I know it's Friday, but come on, computer, let's do a little bit better job. All right, let's just go to the texting line here. We got Joe Burrow, we got Trevor Lawrence, and then Jordan Love. We've got what else do we got here? We've got Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, then Jordan Love. We've got we got Justin Herbert, we got Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, and then Jordan Love. We've got a Jordan Love, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. We've got these are just in order of their picks here. So, and then we got another Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, then Jordan Love. I mean, a lot of you are texting. It's kind of hard to keep track of right now. So, got Joe Burrow, then Jordan Love. We've got Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love. So it looks like a majority right now are kind of going maybe at that 3 or 4 spot if I'm keeping tabs from everything out there. Trying to go through the texting line here. My phone's going off too, so I hope nobody's texting me on my phone. But yeah, it's probably about the average, about 3, 4. A little bit of a mixture of who you have above Jordan Love, but it seems like Joe Burrow is maybe the more popular one there. I'll say this, Joe Burrow, with his elbow injury, the elbow injury, the recovery from there, I mean, signs seem like it's good, but I remember Maybe we'll revisit this. Let me make a note. I'll revisit this with Dr. Crow coming up here in half hour. But that elbow injury or that arm injury that he suffered, there was some concern, long-term concern with his injury. I mean, if he's fully recovered and he's ready to go, which I mean, he's been practicing and such, it seems like he's in a good place right now. But if there was still a little bit of concern, I'd be a little bit concerned about that. Um, talent-wise, I'm a little concerned over there. We got a few more texts coming in here. We got a Joe Burrow, a Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, then Jordan Love. We've got Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love. So okay, 3-4 seems to be where the majority is here. We got another Trevor Lawrence, then Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trevor. Wow, a lot of people are texted in right now. I'm gonna have to kind of minimize that there too. So, but hey, keep your picks coming. All right, whether it's on the texting line or on the good old Twitter over there. So, I think for me, when I look at this, the Trevor Lawrence one, I mean, this is a guy we've been following since Clemson and freshman year and such, and he came on the scene right away. Uh, I mean, I can make a case for I think almost all these quarterbacks where a lot of it depends. Like Jared Goff, no offense, but I think Jared Goff. I mean, he's in a perfect situation with the Lions, and the Lions are doing a fantastic job with Jared Goff and surrounding him with talent. But that offense is built around him. I mean, is there any of these quarterbacks where you'd feel comfortable playing in, I guess, how do I want to phrase this? Multiple styles of offense, like different styles of offense. Like for example, Lamar Jackson's not going to be a straight up pocket passer. We would all agree with that, right? Like if you try to make Lamar Jackson a straight up pocket passer, you're not getting the best version of Lamar Jackson. Is that also a version of Lamar Jackson that can last in the NFL? Debatable. Debatable, depending on the amount of hits and such, right? I think that's fair to say. I'm excited to see what Justin Herbert can do now with Harbaugh over there. I think there's another level to his game. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, I almost don't want to count his rookie year with Urban Meyer. Second year under Doug Peterson was better. Last year, dude went through a lot of injuries. Burrow, kind of already talked about that. Guy's got a lot of talent surrounding him, and he's got a lot of talent himself. A little concerned about the injuries. Jalen Hurts, $51 million. I mean, dude led his team to a Super Bowl. This one's tough. I'm probably putting Jordan Love around that 3 spot too. Who would I put above him if I'm not worried about injuries? I might go Burrow and Justin Herbert. If we take injuries to the side, because we've gotten to see Burrow and Justin Herbert for a little bit. Jordan's really good half season. I think sky is the limit for him, but if I had to pick right now, just based off these 6 and where I'm putting Love, I'm probably going Burrow and maybe Justin Herbert over there too. It's tough though. If Jordan goes out this year though and plays a whole year like he did last year or the second half of last year, then I think Jordan Love maybe goes up to number 1. But if I'm operating under just a half a season last year, I think I can only put him at 3. I can only put him at that 3 spot right now. I want to see a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Want to see it for more than 8 games, 9 games, 10 games, whatever the heck it was. But there's no doubt Jordan Love's going to get something in here. I mean, he's got to be feeling good. His agent's got to be feeling good. I don't think he'll pass Lawrence or Burrow in terms of money per year, but I guess never say never. I don't know if Love will lead in a particular category, whether it's the guaranteed money or anything like that. But I mean, if we go based off the trends of these contracts, it's probably going to be a 5-year deal. Boy, my guess would, if I had to put a number on it, if it's a 5-year, oh, maybe 5-year, let's maybe, if we do 55 per year, 5 years, that's about a 275 million. So maybe about a 5-year, 260. If we just do the straight up basic, years divided by the total amount of the contract, not factoring in guaranteed or anything like that, I'm going to say 5 years, 260, 265, if we kind of use where the numbers have been coming through. If we use these contracts that have been coming through these last year and plus, I think it's going to fall in there. I don't think he's going to get. I'd be shocked if he gets the 60 per year. Sure seems like a lot of people are saying it's going to be the Dak Prescott that's going to get the $60 million per year, which I don't know if I would agree with either. But again, it's the name of the game. It's how the NFL goes. Highest paid quarterback doesn't always mean it's the best quarterback in the league. It goes up every single year after that. So our good friend Tom from across the pond, he's going Herbert, Love, and Goff. Top 3 in that order. We got a couple more texts. We've got Burrow, Herbert, Lawrence, and then Love. One texter said just got to see a little bit more from Love, but he easily could top this list. Another texter saying after this year, it'll be Love, but I can't put him at number 1 right now just because of a half of a season worth of games that were spectacular. But I would probably put him around 4. Give me Herbert, Burrow, and Lawrence if I had to pick. If I had to pick 3 ahead of him. Not a ton of picks here for Lamar Jackson, even though the guy's already got a couple MVPs under him. I'm imagining, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would imagine the reason why we're not getting a lot of Lamar Jackson picks is probably because maybe you're a little concerned of his play style and in the longevity of that. If that's something that can last, that's what my guess would be if I'm off, or if you're a listener that didn't pick Lamar Jackson and you have a different reason, I'd love to hear it. So let me know. Haven't seen anybody pick Jalen Hurts right now, and I don't know if that's based off of the performance the season that the Eagles kind of had last year, but seems like we've got a consensus on what the top 4 is, at least. Whether it's a little bit of a different mixture of names, whether it's Burrow, whether it's Herbert, whether it's Love, or whether it's Lawrence. But that seems to be the consensus of the top 4 right now. Got a little bit of different order depending on who's chimed in and such. But man, we'll see. But keep them coming. All right, keep these picks coming. Definitely got the conversation going here this morning, no doubt about it. So, who do you think is going to be the first $60 million one? You think it's going to be somebody else besides Dak Prescott? It's coming. It's coming. Whether it's next year or maybe the following year after that, but it's coming. No doubt about it. The Patrick Mahomes, I mean, now it's just when you look at what the deal that Patrick Mahomes signed. I was reading Andrew Brandt yesterday, he was like, just when you get these contracts that come out now for these quarterbacks, he just shakes his head that Patrick Mahomes, from a business standpoint, sign that 13-year deal. And teams can adjust and, convert and all that, but that's not the norm. Excuse me, 10-year deal. 10-year contract, $450 million, including 10 million in signing bonus. This is from Spot Track. 141 point, I'm going to round, 141.5 guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $45 million. I mean, that just almost kind of looks like a bargain now at this point. Now I'm just kind of looking at what's the cap hits here for Patrick Mahomes. So this year, Patrick Mahomes' cap hit is 37. It does jump up quite a bit for a couple years after that. 2025, Patrick Mahomes' cap hit is 66.3. Then it's 68.7 in 2026, 64.8 in 2027. Drops down for a couple years after that, 2028. Right now, it's 32.6, 2029, let's say 35. Then it goes up a couple more after that, 45, and then about 48. But again, those are salary caps. Again, unless something weird happens in the world, salary caps are going to go up. So I mean, those still might be kind of a bargain at that point. But I don't think you're going to see Jordan Love sign a 13-year deal, 10-year deal, whatever the case may be. I mean, I think if he signs a long-term deal like that where it's double-digit years, that's a benefit to the Packers, I believe. Now, is it a bit of a risk because maybe you've seen a half year worth? Yeah, probably. But at the same time, it could turn into a little bit of a bargain after that. Yeah, Andrew Brandt said the fact that he agreed to a 13-year deal, 10 years on top of his three, still boggles my mind. So, all right, we got to take a quick break here. We'll catch up on some other picks a little bit later on here. So, but a lot of you chiming in. I'm pretty sure I probably didn't get to everybody, but it is what it is. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back here in just a few minutes. Let's talk some Brewers leading up to this series against the Reds. Looking to do some remodeling in your home or office space, work area, whatever the case may be, or maybe you're wanting to help out Dad with redoing his own man cave and such. Look no further than our good friends and the experts at Carpet City Flooring Center right here in Eau Claire, whether it's carpet, luxury vinyl planks, tile. Maybe you want to redo some shower stuff over there too. Those people can do that as well. But they're just awesome people to work with. So friendly, great customer service. The entire team over there. Always love getting over there and visiting with the entire crew. So if you're looking to maybe upgrade your flooring game or any space in your home or workspace or office, whatever the case may be, look no further than Carpet City Flooring Center. Okay, I mean those people have been with us from the beginning and such. Jason, Matt, or Jason, Ben, Aaron, everybody over there. So wanna give a big time shout out to them. And if you happen to find a better deal elsewhere, those guys they'll match or beat it too. They'll match or beat it too. Awesome teammates to have. So if you're looking to update some flooring, look no further than Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. We have Jimmy that wants to throw a question out to everybody who has picked Jordan Love at number 1 on that list. Jimmy says, this screams of homerism for so many people who are picking Jordan Love at number 1 on that list. Take the homerism out of it and give me a reason why. This is from Jimmy. Give me a reason why you're picking Jordan Love over quarterbacks who have led their teams to Super Bowls, Joe Burrow being one of them, Jalen Hurts being another one, or Lamar Jackson, who has won a couple of Super Bowls. Jordan Love has played a half of a good season compared to those other players. Give me one legit reason why people are picking him number 1 over those quarterbacks. All right, so I threw the question out. To everybody who picked Love number 1. Give me the reasons why. Or give me a reason why, according to Jimmy wants to know. All right, Jimmy wants to know. So hit me up with the text. Your reasons if you were one that had Love number 1, or let's say maybe number 2 or something like that. I don't know. Very high. Jimmy wants to know why you're picking them high. So I'll give you a little bit to chime in on that. Brewers wise, we're getting set to start a series against the Cincinnati Reds. Brewers, 12 games over 500 right now, 40-28 on the season. Currently in second place in the division. St. Louis Cardinals holding on to the second place in the NL Central. They're 6.5 back from the Brewers. Cincinnati is now in third. In sole possession of third, 7 games back. Cubs in fourth, 7.5 back. They're 3 games under 500. And then you got Pittsburgh in last place, 8 games behind the Brewers for first place. So tonight's game will feature Freddie Peralta on the mound. Here's your starters for the crew in this 3-game series. Freddie Peralta is going to get the start tonight. We've got Bryce Wilson getting the start tomorrow. Colin Ray getting the start on Sunday. Looking at Freddie Peralta, he's 4-3 with that 3.95 ERA so far this season. And when we look at his latest games, looking at the last couple games here, first 2 games in the month of June, go back to the second where he was up against the White Sox. He did pick up a win, but he went 5 innings and 3 earned runs. And then Detroit, 3 1/3, 3 earned runs, no decision there, but threw 94 pitches. How would you gauge, rate, grade, however you want to phrase it, the season that we have seen from Freddie Peralta so far? Knowing that he is the quote-unquote ace of the staff, how would you assess how the job that he has done thus far? If we break it down by months, in May, he was 0-3 with a 4.08 ERA. You want to go to April, he was 2-0 in 5 games with a 3.58 ERA. So in March, 1-0, 1.50 ERA. That was just the 1 game opening day. But how would you assess the job that Freddie has done as being the new number one of the staff? Hit expectations about what you expected, or a little underwhelming? I think for me, I don't think we have seen number one stuff on a consistent basis thus far. I don't think we've seen a number one type of stuff. Not obviously, maybe we've got a high bar because of what we've seen from Corbin Burns, the last few years, and see what he's continued to do in Baltimore. Just blanked on there for a second, but I don't think we've. I'd like to see him get a little bit better if he's going to be a number one. I think if he's going to be a number one of a staff, I'd like to see a little bit more consistency from him. And he's racking up. If you look at some of these game logs, the dude racks up a lot of pitches in 5 innings, 6 innings of work. I'll go back to starting from May. 5 innings, 97 pitches. 6 innings, 100 pitches. 5 innings, 97 pitches. One of his best games was that Miami game. He actually got a loss in it, which was it's one of those games too where the dude did not deserve to be given a loss there. But he went 7 innings, 1 earned run, 4 hits, 98 pitches, and got charged with a loss. The Cubbies, he went 5 2/3, 111 pitches, did have 11 strikeouts in that one. And the 2 games thus far in June, 5 innings, 97 pitches, and his latest one, 3 1/3 at 94 pitches over there. So I don't know. I don't think we've seen enough yet from I shouldn't say that. Let me rephrase that. I want to see a little bit more from Love to show that consistency of being a number one of the staff. Because right now I'd like to see a little bit better. Not saying he's been awful, but I'd like to see a little bit better of a performance. We'll talk some more Brewers with Brandon though coming up in the next hour. Before that, we will chat with Dr. Crow for a little inside the training room. Valley Orthopedic Sports Medicine, maybe one of those guys that could step up into an ace role for the Brewers. Robert Gasser, what's going on with this elbow injury of his? He's getting a third opinion. Don't think I haven't heard. I've put the play out there on social media that Robert Gasser should hit up our own Dr. Crow for an opinion over there. Not sure if he has or not, but we've heard of second opinions. I don't think it's been too often that we have heard of third opinions over here. Gotta up something here quick. But anyways, so we'll get Dr. Crow's opinion on what this UCL injury is for Robert Gasser, because it's not a tear, but you got one doctor, a doctor that Dr. Crow has talked about a lot on his segments, that is saying, yeah, maybe you should get surgery on that, which would take him out the whole year. So we'll catch up with Dr. Crow and hit that up here a little bit. So, all right, couple responses from those who have picked Jordan Love. DK Love went to Dallas, and the Packers smoked Dallas at their field. Go Pack, go. C-Bomb saying Jordan Love is younger, took a group of rookies to a playoff win and played well enough to beat San Francisco on the road in January. Well, until the last play, though, right? Let's be fair, C-Bomb. Until the last play, he didn't. Throwing across his body and throwing a pick. I think we got to play it fair. Did he play well? He did play well up until that last drive and that last play when he made a very young and inexperienced mistake. Those other quarterbacks had rosters full of players like Jamar Chase, Keenan Allen, Mark Andrews, top 10 defense players every year. Love did it with 5 rookies for weapons and a Joe Barry-led Swiss cheese defense. So, okay, I mean, fair. It's fair, but I also think we got to be fair. Did he play well enough on the road? Yes, but did he make a crucial mistake at the end? He absolutely did too. So I think we got to look at both sides there, just to play a little devil's advocate. I think we got to throw that out there too. David with the text saying, I agree with Jimmy. Too many people with homer picks on Jordan Love for just a half season success. Was it a very good half season? Absolutely. Turned into probably the best quarterback or one of the best quarterbacks in the second half. But we're talking about a half of a season here to say he's above some of the other top younger quarterbacks or top young quarterbacks out there, I think is putting the cart before the horse. Okay. Got a little bit of a debate going. Not bad for a Friday. Bring it on. Keep it coming. I like it. All right. I like it. Keep your thoughts coming on whatever side of the aisle you're on. Whatever side of the aisle you're on. I love it. So to the one texter saying that Jordan Love is the younger quarterback, they're wrong. Trevor Lawrence is actually younger than Jordan Love. And I just looked that up. At age-wise, yes, Trevor Lawrence is actually younger than Jordan Love. I had to double check that just to make sure. But Trevor Lawrence, 24 years old. It says here. I don't know when his birthday is. It doesn't say there. But yeah, Jordan Love is will be 26 in November. So I guess yeah, accurate is accurate. Trevor Lawrence is younger than Jordan Love, age-wise. Playing-wise, not so much. Maybe I don't know if Texter was referring to playing years and maybe wear and tear on the body. I don't know, but yeah, technically age-wise, Trevor Lawrence is younger than Jordan Love. So, all right, keep your picks coming. Keep your thoughts coming. Hit us up with the text 715-830-1912. We'll get back to those coming up a little bit later on here. So, we got Dr. Crow inside the training room coming up after these news updates, and we'll get we'll throw that question out to Brandon. He doesn't have a horse in this race. Where would he put those quarterbacks in those lists? We'll put him on the spot there too. All right. One in. We got 2 more to go. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Rose Mindoro in Section 3. This year's convention also set a new attendance record of 3,919, breaking the record set back in 2016. Fair time, and for exhibitors wanting to show lactating dairy cows at an upcoming fair, the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection has issued some new guidelines regarding bird flu, which has now been confirmed in 90 dairy herds in 12 states, including Iowa, Michigan, and Minnesota, but not Wisconsin. The new guideline is that all lactating dairy cattle going to a fair will be required to have an influenza A test prior to going to a fair beginning next Wednesday, June 19th. And the spring maple syrup season across the state a little better than it was in 2023. Total production was 458,000 gallons. That's up about 1,000 from last year. Part of the reason for the production increase was producers put in 20,000 more taps this year, bringing the total to 1,140,000. But yield per tap was slightly lower than last year. Final prices for this year's maple syrup crop still being figured as last year. The average price $31.70 a gallon. Wisconsin now ranks fourth in maple syrup production, behind, of course, Vermont, New York, and Maine. That's a look at some of our Friday farm news on Sports Talk 105.1 and AM 790. I'm Bob Bosold.
Your small business keeps you on the go. Progressive Commercial Insurance keeps your policy within reach with their easy-to-use mobile app. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, sports aficionados and armchair quarterbacks, welcome to the Dan Kasper Show, where sports passion meets expert analysis. Dan's encyclopedic knowledge and infectious passion for all things sports is both impressive and sad.
I have many leather-bound books.
So get ready to laugh, cheer, and maybe even facepalm a few times.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
It's the Dan Kasper Show.
Second hour kicking off on this Friday morning, Friday before Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to all of the dads out there. Treat dads extra special this weekend. Coming up, we'll catch up with Brandon Berg. We'll do a little local sports roundup, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. Shout out to Oliva Strum winning the first state baseball championship in program history. Jumping out to a 7-0 lead in the first inning, that's setting a tone right away. So congrats to Oliva Strum. I know Regis and Regis McDonald girls soccer, they were at state as well. That started yesterday. They fell a bit short yesterday too. So the Express, they picked up a win, 7-5 yesterday. They're back at tonight on the road against the Waterloo Bucks. We begin this hour catching up with our favorite doctor, Dr. Austin Crow, for a little inside the training room.
Paging Dr. Crow. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crow. On the Dan Kasper Show.
He is Dr. Crow from Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine joining us this morning. Austin, how we doing, man?
Fantastic. Beautiful day out there. Looking like a beautiful weekend ahead of us.
Absolutely, man. So, you got anything planned up for Father's Day weekend?
I'm on call this weekend, so stay
Okay.
safe out there, everybody, for all of our sakes.
Yes. Hey, I want to lead things off, talk a little baseball. Robert Gasser, another Brewers pitcher that is banged up here. And I was kind of talking about a little bit earlier. I don't know how many times I've heard of a player or even a person getting a third opinion on an injury right now, but he's dealing with an elbow injury, and I know he went to see a doctor that you've mentioned a few times or quite a bit on our program here, but from my understanding, it's a UCL injury, but it's not torn. But one of the recommendations was surgery to maybe stabilize it or strengthen it. Is that something common too, even if it's not torn, that maybe a surgery could be recommended to maybe strengthen that ligament?
Yeah, that'd be more along the lines of that internal brace option that we've talked about, which is gaining popularity. So basically, you're going to try to reinforce it because that whole medial elbow, there's a lot of interplay. So the world famous UCL, Tommy John ligament, as there are issues with that, it often shifts stress to the basically dynamic stabilizers, which are the flexors. So the muscle tendon unit then can get problems as well. So whenever you start seeing pictures of medial elbow pain, even if it isn't directly a tear in the UCL, it often originates back to it. So there is a train of thought that if you go ahead and do an internal brace and strengthen that will then in turn offload those flexors and resolve the medial sided elbow pain. But it is a somewhat, I don't want to say controversial, but it's a somewhat aggressive take. But if people are having persistent issues, then sometimes you have to think about it. But that's definitely why you're getting 2-3 opinions. I mean, it's not common. People go out for, 3, 4, 5 opinions on an elbow. If you're a Major League Baseball player, it's probably a little more common. But even then, I mean, if you're seeing guys like Neil Elatrash or Brian Cole or Jim Andrews, I mean, those are the kind of guys that they see. So they're seeing the biggest names in orthopedics, and that's the opinions they're getting. And there's going to be even between them, there's variability because it's not always black and white. This isn't like a tibia fracture where you look at it and say, well, the bone's broken or it's not. That's not the way that ligaments and soft tissue work. You can have these kind of partial injuries, low-grade injuries, or kind of complex interplay where you feel if you take care of one problem, you parlay into another. So complex, I guess, to sum it up.
Yeah, no doubt. When somebody like an athlete goes out and gets these multiple opinions, is he or she essentially looking for that opinion that would get them back on the field quicker? Is that kind of the main thing, or are they just looking maybe for the best option overall for recovery?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, at the end of the day, really what you're looking for is what aligns with what their thoughts are. I mean, really, because at the end of the day, I mean, when I present any option to a patient with surgery, and this is true for an athlete or a 90-year-old grandma with an arthritic knee, I mean, the same thing, you lay out options for them. And in most problems, there are multiple options. And so sometimes it is very much dealer's choice where you say, look, these are 3 different things we can consider doing. And we call that shared decision-making, where you try to get the patient involved in their own healthcare because it's their body. Now, sometimes things are very obvious, but when you're dealing with these kind of, tweeners, if you will, it often comes down very much to opinion. So like I said, you can go see 10 of the world's most prominent elbow surgeons, and you'll probably get 10 slightly different opinions. So then it comes down to, well, what makes sense to the athlete? But let me tell you, it's more than just them. I mean, they'll have their coaching staff, they'll have their agents. I mean, it's a very kind of complex kind of collaboration between all those different people. Often the team's training staff, they'll all kind of weigh in on it. And so, yeah, I mean, there are times where you're saying, look, we got to think about what's the most important long-term strategy. Or sometimes it'll say, look, we're making a run in the playoffs. What can get me back on the field? Yes, it may not be the world's best long-term strategy, but we need to be on the field now. So it depends. So it is variable, I guess, to put it bluntly.
Would his issue with bone spurs in spring training have any relation to this, or could have it made it worse or caused this type of injury?
Yeah, so when we see spurring in the elbow, that often is a sign of instability. So often it'll be off of what's called the olecranon, which is kind of the knob at the tip of your elbow. And it's not that part, that's the part away from the joint. That also goes in to make up the joint. So when you throw, if the inner part of the elbow just has a little bit of laxity, the olecranon shifts inside what's called the olecranon fossa, and it rubs against there. So if you see spurring along that medial edge, it suggests that there's UCL or ulnar instability. And so that's one of the signs where you may say in the MRI, look, the ligament's not torn, but it suggests that there is instability. And that could be why you're having 2, 3, 4 opinions saying, look, I think that this is really what's going on. And because it's more of like there's where there's smoke, there's fire kind of thing, as opposed to seeing it. You're inferring it. So, yeah, that definitely could be playing a role.
Interesting stuff. Dr. Crow, inside the training room, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. I want to revisit an injury that we talked about a few months ago here. Joe Burrow. Remember, he had that wrist injury, tore some ligaments, and, it looked like he was struggling on the sidelines, that image of, like, gripping a football and such. And, a topic we've been talking about is quarterback contracts right now with Trevor Lawrence getting a big deal. He's matching Joe Burrow's per year there. Can we kind of revisit Burrow's injury in a sense? Like, was there some, or still maybe some long-term concern about that injury? Because I think when you and I talked about it, it was maybe a bigger injury than what I think a lot of people kind of assumed or expected.
Yeah, I mean, there's huge implications. So, is it possible he comes back from that? Yes, it is. Is that a good injury? No, it is not. I mean, harken back to like the Tiger Woods, you know, when he had that bad fracture in his foot, like, I don't know if you remember me saying, like, that's just a bad injury. A lot of bad things are going to come. I mean, if you look at now he's obviously come back and is doing well, all things considered, but he ended up having to have a fusion. There are just some injuries where bad things are going to happen. And an injury to that ligament, it is just one of the ligaments in the body we don't have great solutions for. Not to say it can't work, but they just don't have a tremendously high success rate. And so the other thing is we're not trying to get him back to daily life activities. We're trying to get him to grip a football and throw it at an elite level because he was one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, I don't want to be a doomsday kind of person, but I just don't think he'll ever have that same wrist strength, hand strength, range of motion, strength. All those things are going to be affected. Is it going to be a small amount or a large amount? That remains to be seen. But I mean, it's a bad injury. I've seen a lot of people have this injury and never get back to where they were before. And I'm not even talking NFL. I'm talking like daily life stuff. So yeah, it is a big injury. Now, the other question is was it a complete disruption, or were they saying, look, it's partially torn and let's kind of augment it? Yeah, then it has a better chance. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to address it, which honestly is not a good thing, because if there was one right way, everyone would do it. So there's a lot of different ways because everyone says, well, maybe this will work better than the other stuff. So I don't know exactly which technique he had done, but none of them are perfect. We'll put it that way. So yeah, that is a huge deal. And I haven't seen a lot as far as like him getting back and doing any kind of off-season stuff. So I don't know if there's been any updates that you've seen, but I have not seen in the news much for him, playing or using that at all. And he may not even be ready to be doing any of those kind of drills. So it'll be an absolute work in progress, and will be a huge question mark in the future. I'll be, straight up. It's a big injury. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was just kind of reading some of the quotes when it happened too, because I was like curious, how does something like that happen? And he said he just heard a pop on a throw, on a touchdown pass. It wasn't like a hit or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was probably partially injured with something along the way. Scapholunate injuries, which is what that ligament is, it sits between two of those, we call them the carpal or wrist bones, or the small bones that make up the wrist. And the scapholunate is basically a ligament that holds it all together. So when that tears, the bones shift a little bit. So it's not like your wrist falls apart, but the bones don't link together the way they're supposed to. So when you move and load it, it causes a ton of problems. Anyway, the injury usually occurs when you land on like an outstretched hand and it really forces the wrist back, it loads it. So we sometimes see them in conjunction with scaphoid fractures or other carpal bone injuries. But yeah, it's a bad one. It absolutely is. So it probably had an injury, and then he just did something that took it the rest of the way in that pop. But again, was it complete or partial? They never really disclosed that. And they also didn't disclose exactly the technique that was done to reconstruct or repair it. So yeah, I mean, I certainly wish him the best. I mean, he obviously is a phenomenal athlete, and you want to see him get back at that high level. But time will tell.
Yeah. He read a quote from a couple days from him. He said he's still rehabbing it. But he wouldn't say what percentage he's currently at. He said, tough to say what percentage he's currently at. That doesn't bode well. It doesn't sound like either. So
yeah. I just, I mean, there's been reports, people saying, yeah, he'll be fine, but I would say, I mean, he may be, yeah. And I'd love to be wrong that this is, and I'm overplaying this, but they're just injuries. Sometimes you see them and you're like, this one is, we're in a kind of salvage mode. Like we're going to try get you back to where you were, but we're trying to salvage a bad situation. And that's that type of injury. It really is.
Last one here. Kristaps Porzingis. I was reading this on CBS Sports, where it said that he suffered a rare injury, and I'm going to butcher the name. Torn medial reticulum.
You butchered that. That was not even close. Retinaculum.
Oh man, see, that's the reason why I'm not a doctor. But it says it allows a dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon. Is that correct?
Tibialis. You're close. That one was closer. I'll give you that one. That one was close.
Okay, so what the heck is that in English, please?
Yeah. So retinacular injuries are actually quite common, but they're almost universally on the outer part of the ankle. So when people have recurrent lateral ankle instability, so you roll your ankle, one of the associated injuries we'll see is a tearing of the lateral or outer retinaculum, and then the peroneal tendons can click and pop. So if anyone out there is spraining their ankle and they roll their ankle and it makes a loud click and pop and they can feel their tendons snapping and moving, that's not a good thing. That's basically them falling out of the groove that they're in. Now on the inner part or medial ankle, instead of the peroneals, you have a group of tendons, but one of them in this case is called the posterior tibial tendon. That's the tendon that holds your arch up. So that's like the arch tendon. And so like all tendons that traverse across the joint, they have to sit in a groove. The covering is called the retinaculum. So basically it's a little sheath that helps keep the tendon right where it's supposed to be. And I can say in my career, I've only seen a couple injuries to the retinaculum on the medial side. It's very rare. Lateral, very common. Medial, very rare. It is relatively, I won't say easily addressed, but it's generally a surgical procedure. If it's completely torn, we have to repair or reconstruct that to keep the tendons back in place. Now on the medial side, it's a fairly long structure, that retinaculum. They didn't really say if it's completely torn or partially torn. If it's partially, sometimes you can like put someone in a boot or cast and let it try heal back. If it is fully, if those tendons, in this case, one tendon is dislocating, they're going to have to go in and repair or reconstruct that. And that would be a bigger deal, but it still should be relatively straightforward. And I would expect him to get back from that, but obviously it depends on the severity of the injury. And I haven't seen in a report whether it's complete or partial.
Mm-hmm. Man, well, at least Boston's up 3-0. I don't think they have to play them or try to play them or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
it has been one-sided playoffs thus far.
Yeah, no doubt. He's Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Dude, thank you for correcting me in my mispronunciations. I mean, that I embarrass myself sometimes when I have to ask you that.
We'll get you there. Yeah, we'll get you there.
I need like the sound out chart, like in school when we're kids learning that. So, oh man,
yeah, phonetics.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, have a happy Father's Day to you, Dr. Crow. Enjoy it as much as you can, but we appreciate you every time that you're on Friday morning. So have a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch up with you again soon, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Father's Day to you and all the dads out there.
Appreciate that. There you go. Dr. Crow inside the training room, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. We'll take a quick break. We'll go to Brandenburg. He's not a dad, so I couldn't say it from one father to another. He's maybe. We're getting close to the bottom of the hour here. Was venting a little bit to Brandon during the break about baseball last night with some youth sports stuff and coaches and all that stuff.
First of all, before we get into any proceedings today, I'm going to need you to repronounce the Kristaps Porzingis injury.
No, we're done. I don't have to say that again in my life. Hopefully, but no, I will not do that. The one day you put on the headphones so you can listen to it, and then
I know, and
that's
I might have to do that. I mean, it's always going to be good stuff from Dr. Crow, and usually I can kind of hear it in here, so I don't have to put on the headphones for that. But for whatever reason, I just felt like doing it today, and I could really hear it.
Oh yeah, and then believe me, if today was a grind my gears, I would have a lot. And Brandon got me fired up because I had to vent about what happened again last night. So, anyways, I'm like Danny O'Shea. I was thinking about this. I'm like Danny O'Shea from Little Giants. We just want to play. And then you said Muddy Ducks kids coach. Never mind. I'm not going to go into details with that. So, but I was thinking about that. Danny O'Shea is a great coach. Great coach. Great leader. Right?
At some point, we've done the top 5 on like the coaches from movies, right?
We did.
We did. I thought we did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we did. We might have to make another one though too, like youth sports rules, do and do nots. When we get to like stadium rules or stadium rules and stuff, we might have to do a youth sports one out there one of these days. So, how you doing, Brandon?
Good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic, man. Fantastic. Hey, I'm going to ask you this right away. So, because everybody was arguing about it on our texting line, even though listeners couldn't see it, I could see it all. So they were just like arguing back and forth with the Trevor Lawrence contract. So I got the list here from Adam Schefter about the top 6 quarterbacks per year. We know how NFL contracts work. It's not as simple as dividing 250 by 5 and like, that's how much it makes.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into what the contract number is.
Yep. But based on a per year basis, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow are tied for the most at $55 million. Jared Goff, 53. Justin Herbert, 52.5. Lamar Jackson, 52. Jalen Hurts, 51. We know Jordan Love's going to get a contract. It's going to be in the 50 range per year. But I asked the question, of those 6, only those 6 quarterbacks, is there any of one of them, and who are you putting ahead of Jordan Love on that list? If you were a general manager right now, not money-wise, just like talent-wise, like it's kind of like which quarterbacks would you take out of those 6? Plus Jordan Love.
On the heels of the discussion about Joe Burrow, like I would if I knew he wasn't coming off that. I mean I think that one's pretty. That's pretty.
If he was healthy, I'd probably put him one or at the top.
Or if we were a year from now and we knew that he was able to kind of make a comeback from that, but we don't. So, I could make a case for Justin Herbert. He's one I think for sure. Like
I'm excited to see him with Harbaugh this year.
Right, and it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be different. But I do think he's someone that there's definitely some upward mobility in kind of how he's viewed.
Yep.
I like Trevor Lawrence, but I still need to see a little bit more there. I mean, and that's not so much, not just on him, but on the team in general. Like last year it just felt like it was there for so long for the taking for them, and they just couldn't do it. But there's talent there. You and I both think Doug Peterson's a good coach. Certainly better than what
I kind of
had before.
Yeah, I kind of watched Trevor Lawrence's rookie year because of Urban Meyer.
Right. Yeah. Same. I like Jared Goff for being like a facilitator. Like you just kind of at this point, like you just know, okay, this is what his job is. He's a point guard.
And the Lions do a fantastic job putting him in a position to succeed.
Right, and that's not a knock. No, that's I think of him like a John Stockton or a Jason Kidd.
I like that
where
analogy,
like he understands like it's his job to get the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown and to the running back
Williams and Laporta and all that.
Just the different people he have there. Like he understands like it's more of a kind of like a system with him versus like he is the guy, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I would agree.
But
so I had Love at like 3, 4, somewhere around. The Burrow one is kind of the hanger. If it was all healthy, I have Burrow up top.
Who else was in there?
Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson for sure. I mean, he's a 2-time MVP.
You put Lamar above it?
I would.
Yep.
I would. I mean, he's he's a multi-time MVP. Even though he's a little bit older and he's had some injury issues at times, I still would.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts is a little bit tougher because I think Jalen Hurts is closer to that Jared Goff, where, like I said, like he is, he's done everything he needs to do to be a good quarterback, utilizing the talent around him. But he's also had a lot of talent around him. So now, with some retirements on the O line, and we're going to kind of start to see a little bit of what it looks like when it's not, him on the rookie contract, and that you kind of had different expectations for quarterbacks once you're beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would probably say roughly where you had him as well.
Okay, yeah. So, and I know we've got some people who are putting Love at number one, which I mean that's fine.
Yeah.
I guess for me, great second half. I mean, probably one of the best, maybe the best quarterback play of that. I think he could potentially be at that top of that list. But I think I kind of like what you said with Trevor. I maybe want to see a little bit more.
Yeah, and like a year from now, obviously one way or the other, this conversation could be very different.
Oh yeah,
It probably will be. But you're right. Over the course of a full season, a guy like Lamar Jackson has done it over a full season.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I said, I get he's a little bit older, but still, like he's a 2-time MVP.
What would you say about lack of playoff success?
I mean that's part of it, but like I'm not gonna. I mean, it's tough for me to put Jordan Love above him when they've essentially kind of done the same thing. Like, are we judging on what we see right now, or are we judging on what we could see in the future? Because that's it's kind of two different things. Like, would it surprise anyone if the Ravens made a run this year with Lamar Jackson as a quarterback?
Right.
No.
And the other part of this too, I would say, to play a little devil's advocate with you, I think Lamar is similar to Goff, where you got to have that system.
Right.
For him,
Like he's got.
He's not going to be a drop back, sit in a pocket quarterback.
Yeah. He's like, it's not a coincidence that last year he was better when he had a better supporting cast. Like, but I feel that's kind of the case with largely every quarterback.
Exactly.
Like, it's not a coincidence Aaron Rodgers' best years in Green Bay came when he had
Devontae, Jordy,
earlier on when it was Greg Jennings, when they had that.
You don't say Greg Jennings' name on here. I'm just kidding.
But that had that stacked receiver room.
Yep.
Both receivers and tight ends. Like that's just how it is. Like it's not putting down anyone to say that. Like you look at any great quarterback, and chances are they've had some sort of elite receiver that they were throwing to. Tom Brady had Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman. Peyton Manning had Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. Even a guy like Dallas Clark, who when that's your third option, that's pretty good. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. I mean, you can look at Patrick Mahomes, but it's like, but they've still been able to develop that.
Well, and I think we get so when it comes to football and maybe the quarterback position, a couple things here. One, you can win with different styles of quarterbacking.
Yep.
As long as you put the proper system and the offensive game plan around them. If you're trying to make Lamar Jackson a pocket quarterback, you're probably not going to succeed, right?
Right.
But if you're willing to create an offense around him and adapt, you're going to have some success. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yes.
You can win with different styles of quarterbacks.
Right. You don't have to do it one way.
But I also feel like if we are, and this is kind of on the heels of the Tom Brady thing, with his, rightfully so, Hall of Fame and that. What bugs me, though, sometimes is when you have an event like that, showcasing one player, but in that same thing, it's team. And if we're going to sit there and pipe that it's the ultimate team sport, we got to look at these quarterbacks, too, and be like, okay, supporting cast does have to factor in to the success of these quarterbacks.
Right.
And we have to factor that in.
Not just supporting cast on offense, supporting cast on defense, too. I mean,
right, yep.
A big reason the Chiefs have been successful the last few years, even though the offense, by the numbers, isn't as prolific as it was when Tyreek Hill was there, because of what Steve Spagnuolo did with that defense.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because what the Chiefs are the model, in my opinion, where you could pay a quarterback and still win.
Right.
It's because they drafted incredibly well. They put out rookies and second-year guys on that defense. They drafted well, but you're right, Steve Spagnuolo, to have that coach to put him in a position to win games too, because you're looking like last year, not this year, but the year prior, when they had all those rookies on defense or second year, it was like, what are they doing? And it's a credit to the Chiefs for doing that.
Right.
They're doing it right. That's the model, I think. And it's proof that you can pay a quarterback and still win.
No, and then in that case is obviously an extreme example because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of this generation.
Right.
Like
Yep.
If you have the best quarterback of your generation, in some level you're going to be successful. But you're right, like they've.
But look at Green Bay; they had the best quarterback for a while.
Yeah, and I was gonna say but you still have kind of the other boxes you need to check,
right?
Which they have.
Mm-hmm. They could fill a franchise quarterback can fill a lot of holes and cover a lot of inefficiencies.
Right. But
can they cover over it all?
Yeah, but you still need help.
But
you can't just say, "Hey, we got the quarterback. Okay, go, go do everything."
Right.
Like, you still got to help them out.
Right. And I feel, and the last 2 years, and it's not a knock on the Patrick Mahomes or Travis, but it was the defense that really propelled them. I believe. I mean, I'll go back to that Ravens game, Brandon, in the playoffs. Chiefs defense shut down Lamar Jackson and that offense. I mean, made it incredibly frustrating on them. Underrated unit.
Yeah.
I really believe an underrated unit.
And I think the thing that works so well for them is like at this stage of the game, Steve Spagnuolo is not going to be an NFL head coach again. He's done it. He tried it.
Yep.
Wasn't successful. He's not the first great coordinator that wasn't successful as a coach.
I feel like if he was younger, he'd get another shot.
Right. I just think that right now, him and Andy Reid kind of have a good rapport. Like they know, like, okay, we're kind of, it wouldn't surprise me when one retires, the other one's not far behind. Like they kind of understand, like, okay, we're connected on this for however long we want to ride this out.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it kind of interesting too? Because it's almost similar. They didn't have as much success, but they were solid when Andy was in Philly and Jim Johnson. Defensive coordinator.
Jim Johnson never got a chance to head coach.
I don't think so.
Coordinator. Like,
Monty Kiffin too. Lane Kiffin's dad.
Yeah, Monty Kiffin with Tony
Dungy, and was he with Gruden for a little bit? I think he might have.
But that's not a surprise that you see those where you have like the head coach, and if he's an offensive-minded head coach, that you also have like the defensive coordinator that kind of gets autonomy. And I think in some ways that's kind of the model when you have a coach, whether they're offensive or defensive-minded, you kind of have that alternate where like they can kind of take care of it. I mean, that's
it's another head coach.
Right. I'm sure the Packers are hoping they have that with Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley. The Vikings are hoping they have it with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. Like you're kind of looking for that, that 1-2 combo where you get the head coach that takes care of his side of the ball, and then you have that other kind of big time coordinator that you can just say, look, this is yours. Like
Philly now with Vic Fangio.
Right. Like this is I will take care of my side of the ball. Like I'm going to give you autonomy. Like the Vikings, Lord knows Mike Zimmer tried it with a bunch of different coordinators, and it some worked better than others. It worked well with Kevin Stefanski. It worked well with Pat Shurmur. It didn't work out so well with John DeFilippo the first year Kirk Cousins was in Minnesota. Like it just sometimes that works, and when it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, it can be a game changer. That's another way. That's kind of the model.
And it's probably what. Honestly, McCarthy's hoping with Dallas by bringing in Mike Zimmer.
Right. And that's, maybe after the fact, that's why in his later years, Belichick kind of struggled too, because he never, and part of that's on him because he was look who he's throwing out there as offensive minds the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like Mac Jones, it was going to be tough for me to watch Mac Jones succeed when he was working
Matt Patricia
with
was calling plays.
when he's walking, Matt Patricia and whoever, like
you
got to give the guy a chance.
Yeah.
And I those last few years, I really felt like Mac Jones didn't maybe get so much of a chance. That's not putting him in a spot to succeed, in my opinion.
His rookie year, it was McDaniels as offensive coordinator over there, right?
I believe so.
And that was when they went to the boat season. He was
right, he was solid. Like, he wasn't great, but he was solid.
Right.
Like, I just feel like coaching matters so much.
Oh,
like,
I totally agree.
Like you can have the best coach, or the best player in the world, but like part of the reason Patrick Mahomes got to the level he did is because he was working with Andy Reid. If he was working with, I'm trying to think of a mid-range coach or below, like, he probably still would have been good, but it wouldn't have clicked like that.
Right. Yeah. I completely, I think that's why whenever the debate is of like, was it the coach or the quarterback or, best coach of all time, to me, it's so hand in hand.
Right.
Like, I don't know why sometimes I get it. It's for barroom banter and all that, but trying to figure out who's the best of the best or what was the reason for this. It's if you're going to say it's the ultimate team game, it's the ultimate team game.
Well, look at any top level head coach in NFL history. Chances are they had a Hall of Fame quarterback with them.
Except for your boy.
Except for Joe Gibbs.
Yep.
That's why I pound the cable for Joe Gibbs, because he won Super Bowl 3 different quarterbacks.
And I think that you're exactly right, Brandon. When you first brought that up, I'm like, I think that needs to be thrown out there more, because that's super impressive,
Right.
to win 3 titles with 3 different quarterbacks.
And
I don't think that's going to happen again.
It would be tough to happen. And
with the same team, like it's not like let's say Andy Reid won it with Donovan McNabb in 03 and then Patrick Mahomes and all.
Right.
We're not,
like he did in the
this
same
wasn't
team within like a 12, 13 year stretch.
Right. Yeah. That sort of thing. I don't know if we're going to see.
Right.
But other than that, Bill Walsh had a pretty good one. Joe Cool.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick.
Vince Lombardi.
Chuck Noll. I mean, the list
Tom
goes
Landry.
on. Tom Landry. So, yeah, the list goes on, right? Andy Reid.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Good topic. All right, let's take a quick break here. We'll finish up the second hour coming up after these quick words. 15 minutes to the top of the hour here. I threw out this yesterday, and I'm going to do it again now because I feel like it's around this time. If you hear a hum, this noise, and I think you know what I'm talking about because we've had couple people say that. If you hear it, do me a favor, record it on your phone, about 5-10 seconds worth. 5-10 seconds worth. If you hear it on the radio, what'd you do that for?
Sometimes if I put my phones too close to the little transponder here, I'll hear a noise in my
transponder.
I don't know. The box with the knobs on it. Is that better? But sometimes I'll get a little bit of feedback. So I just move my phones down a little bit.
All right.
And not that I was getting it, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
Yeah. Let's know because I've gotten a couple now, which this is going to help because here's the deal. I've had people like listen throughout the morning and I didn't hear anything. But obviously some are hearing. So I'm trying to narrow it down so I can continue to send this to our engineers and be like, it's not nothing. Obviously there's something.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I can't hear it. I can't hear it on a playback. Some are. So we're trying. I'm with you all. I believe you all. I'm pushing to get this thing fixed, and I got another one here. But it's usually in a 7 to 8. And while I record it, tell me where you're at. Like, don't give me your home address or anything. But like, well, I'm on so and so in Eau Claire. That way we can try to see if there's like solar flares or a UFO is stationed up somewhere and it's blocking the signal or something like that.
Bigfoot.
So it's always usually comes back to Bigfoot.
Usually,
screwing around with a tower, probably climbing it and doing some hunting on a tree stand up there because he can't sit in a normal 15-foot ladder stand. So, let me know. Okay, just email it to me. Thank you to those who have. I am trying to get to the bottom of this. And the thing is like, I can go back and listen on our air check. There's nothing there. So it's something from the outside that they're trying to figure out where it's affecting a certain population. So throwing that out there, a little PSA out there. Let's do some local sports roundup because not a lot to catch up on.
No, we're
just
wrapping
kind
up
of
the spring here.
Yeah, local sports roundup brought to you by Amundsen's Appliance Center. Started off again, as we mentioned a couple times, shout out to Oliva Strum.
Mm-hmm.
Last year really made a run, right? And then this year, I know we talked about last week, they got a 5 seed, but was it, I think, a 5 seed in the postseason?
But
probably a little bit lower than what they
And that goes to show, like, your seed matters, but it's not the defining thing. Like, if you're a good team, you're a good team. And you see it happen, especially in, like, baseball and softball, where a team can be a little bit lower than a 1 or a 2. It's not all 1s and 2s making it to state. So,
right.
But for them going and, getting through and then, being able to come from behind in that semifinal Tuesday against Stevens Point Pacelli and then carrying that momentum right over into yesterday with, you mentioned it, 7 runs in the first inning against Northwood Solon Springs and just kind of going from there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a team that, throughout the spring has been really good. It had the pitching, and I think that's always important once you get down to state. I feel like to win a state title, and really in any division, you kind of need like 3 good pitchers that you can go to. And with the way they kind of worked it out, they were able to go to the same pitcher a couple times because they didn't hit the there's a pitch limit in high school, but there's certain thresholds where if a pitcher throws between this and this, they have to rest this many days, and they planned it out well where they were able to come back to to that on yesterday, and it worked out really well. Like that's just kind of a the idea of you love it when a plan comes together,
right?
And it's a big deal. Like it's to be able to grab that and for a program that coming in the coming out of the Dairyland, like Dairyland's had some good teams over the years, but anytime you can be the first to do something at your school, it's a big deal. Whether it's the first time you win a conference, the first time you go to state, whatever it is, and that's just a kind of a group that everyone's gonna remember for a long, long time.
Right. Yep. Yeah, definitely. So, congrats again.
Big time congrats to the Cardinals.
Yep.
Our friends to the south.
Soccer-wise, girls state soccer also was underway yesterday, and Regis McDonald fallen just a bit short.
Yep.
Their also head coach is retiring.
Yeah, Scott Hoffman. So shout out to him. 17 years. That program has been really strong. Always a contender, and this was one of their best teams. They get down to the state after a 4-3 come from behind win overtime over River Valley last week. This week they go up against Cedar Grove, Belgium, the top seeded team with now the state's leading scorer. She entered the contest with I think 59 goals on the year. I mean, and she scored 4. Like it's been a tough matchup for anyone throughout the year, and that was kind of that was just unfortunately for the Saints, that was kind of the case for them yesterday. But yeah, a great year for them being able to get down the stage. It's the second time in program history they've been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Also yesterday, Rice Lake falling in their Division III semifinal. Another Big Rivers team will be in action today with River Falls, who beat on Alaska last Saturday in Altoona. So yeah, we're kind of wrapping up here. This is the end of the high school season coming up. Going back to last weekend as well. Fall Creek softball, winning a state championship, Division IV down in Madison. And it was kind of interesting because coming off that big time emotional win over Grantsburg, it's kind of curious to see how it would go, because when you have a game like that, sometimes it can kind of go one or two directions. Either you can kind of use it as a springboard, or that can kind of be that, like, that was kind of the emotional moment for them. And then, maybe you don't come out necessarily as fired up or ready to go at state, but obviously it was more of the former, where they came out and they earned sizable wins over, both the teams they played down at state, Coleman and Cuba City. So, shout out to Coach Brad Saransky and that Crickets team. I mean, that's that's been building. That's Coach Saransky's second state title. He led Thorpe to a Division IV title in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So he's led a fourth of the Western Clover Belt to state championships in softball. So I have no idea if he wants to try to continue that bingo card, but I think otherwise he's got a pretty good thing going in Fall Creek, and that's a Fall Creek team that honestly is still relatively young. They're going to bring back some real heavy hitters next year, so they're going to come into next year as a favorite in the Western Clover Belt. The Western Clover Belt Conference, I think, is going to be even better than it was this year. When you factor in Thorpe returns all but one player.
Mm-hmm.
When McDonald's going to have some turnover, but they had a really good freshman class that came in that I think is going to continue to improve. A team like Bloomer was really young, same with Stanley Boyd. So I think that's going to be as good of a conference as that was this year, with 3 regional champions, 2 teams at state, and 1 champion. I think it might even be even better next year. A little bit more more depth to it, with some of those younger teams kind of coming of age a little bit more.
Awesome. Wow. All right, so kind of CRBL action now for
we got CRBL going. Obviously, we get the the Express underway.
Mm-hmm.
Support. I'll bring this up. Support your local dirt tracks. We got racing at Red Cedar over in Menominee, at Eagle Valley up in Jim Falls. Some other ones in the
got some Rock Falls.
Rock Falls with some racing there too. So I mean, there's nothing quite like something I've done a lot over the years, just kind of getting out to the local track and seeing the cars out there. So I mean,
mm-hmm.
Whether it's a Friday night, a Saturday night, whenever it is, like you've got those options out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
The CDGA, the Chippewa Valley Golf Association, their season is fully underway. You've got 4 different levels there. I mean, they're busy every weekend, kind of hitting up the different courses in the area. So that's always I think a fun experience if you're a golfer of any renown. I mean, I'm certainly not. So, but
what are you talking about? You're not you're a golfer.
I am, but I'm not a good one. Like I'm not even like I'm not one that would feel necessarily confident going to a competitive environment like that, where you've got
Mm-hmm.
solid golfers. Like if you can play, then absolutely by all means go check out one of those tournaments.
Yep.
But
it's for youth and adults too.
Yeah, they have a youth level.
Yep.
They have the seniors. They have flights.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a championship one, which is kind of the one for kind of the cream of the crop there for them,
Yep.
no pun intended. But otherwise,
that's coming up next.
That is. But otherwise, I mean, speaking of golf, I mean, earlier this week I had a chance to chat with Thomas Longbella.
Oh, nice.
So he's getting ready to start the second half of the PGA Tour America season. He'll be next week. He'll be up in British Columbia, but he now is kind of the Canada section of that schedule. So I got a chance to sit down and chat with him about just kind of the pro golf path for him right now, because he's right now entering the second half of the season. He is 6th, I believe, 5th, or maybe it's 5th. I forget, it's 5th or 6th, but either way, he's in a good spot in the Fortinet Cup standings, which is essentially the season-long standings for the PGA Tour Americas, where the top 10 finishers at the end of the year actually earn Korn Ferry status for next year.
Nice.
And for those who don't know, the Korn Ferry Tour is essentially AAA for PGA Tour.
Right.
It's the level below the PGA Tour. PGA Tour Americas is like AA.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's obviously, I mean, that's the goal. So now Longbella is going into Canada to play. I think it's 10 tournaments in the next couple months, and there's one in Brainerd, Minnesota, but otherwise the rest of them are across Canada. And these are all courses he's, for the most part, he's seen before. And I just got a chance to kind of sit down and chat with him about what this been like. He won a tour event earlier this season in Peru.
Yeah.
And the first half of it was in more of Latin America, so we got to see him. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of almost been one of the unplanned for, positives of his golf journeys. I mean, he's played. I mean, he's got to see the world, really. I mean, he played in South Africa. He's been over to Europe. He's played in South America. Now, he's making another trek around Canada. Like, that's just kind of a unique part about this, is the fact that you kind of get to see the world.
Yeah.
And see some of the many great golf courses in the world.
All right. No kidding. That's so cool. So cool.
But yeah, that story will be coming up this weekend in the Herald.
So make sure you check it out. Pick up Herald. Check it out, Chippewa.com.
Yeah.
Over there, too. Follow Brandon. I'm sure you'll tweet out the link when
I'm
it's
sure
up,
I will
too.
when that comes up. But otherwise, some good stuff, coming up here in the coming weeks. I got some ideas for the summer. So I have a piece of paper at my desk I always jot down summer ideas for, and now I can start crossing those off. So
I like it, man. I like it. All right, that's your local sports roundup for this morning. Really quick, got a couple texts. Thank you from a couple of you telling me where you can hear where you're hearing that hum. I can tell you right now, it's not in one general direction, so it's out there. So thank you. This is more evidence for me to give to the powers that be.
The more you can present and say, hey, there's something here, that helps.
Yes.
Helps.
So thank you so much. Jake from State Farm, though, he is saying he is listening from the Flambeau River while muskie fishing. I'll give you guys a chance to pick the next bait I throw. Option 1, Poseidon. Number 2, black and orange bucktail. Number 3, Lake X top water.
B.
The black and orange bucktail?
Yes.
I like a top water action, so I'm going to go Lake X top water. You got to do 2 now. So
there we go.
Do 2.
I went black and orange for Bloomer because I know that connection's there. So.
Wow, you did go.
Look at that! Yeah. Look at that!
Nice. I think I probably Jake's probably gonna go with that now too. So nice pull. That a boy. I like that. All right, coming up next hour, we're gonna talk some Brewers. The crew back in action today after an off day. They're going to be going up against the Cincinnati Reds for a 3-game series. Now 6.5 up on the second place. We finally got a team now that's in second place by itself, the Cardinals. 6.5 back. Then it's the Reds. Then it's the Cubs. And then it's the Pirates.
There's kind of a battle royal 2nd through 5th. It's kind of different order.
Right. So plenty of Brewers chat coming up in the next hour here. So we're going to get to that. We got a little cream of the crop as well. And you can play along with cream of the crop here too. And then Brandon, I'm hoping in the final hour too, we can finalize our bracket for the most underrated.
Was the Brewers the last one you were waiting on?
Yes, because I was going to have you with this.
I thought about this last night when I was going to bed. I was wondering if you were bringing this up because I've been following along the other ones. So I'm like, there's one for sure that I feel like I might pound the table for. But yeah, we can definitely have that discussion.
All right. So tell you what. Rest of you for the final hour, because I've been taking some nominations from other listeners too. Give me your underrated Brewers players of all time. So in this case, it's not Yelich.
Yeah.
It's not Robin Yount.
It's not Ryan Braun.
It's not Ryan Braun.
It's not Prince Fielder.
It's not Paul Molitor. Those guys. Right. Underrated.
I understood the process, but I did scoff a little bit on Tuesday when Luke was bringing up Hall of Famers for underrated Bucks. I'm like, they're Hall of Famers. You can't bring them up.
Thank you.
But I get it because you don't think about them throughout Bucks history. But still, they're Hall of Fame.
Was it Marcus Johnson when we were at the Final Four that got inducted to the Hall of Fame?
I think it might have been.
I remember Vladdy.
Oh yeah, you can't forget Vladdy.
2 in. We got 1 more to go. Stick around. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, final hour kicking off on this Friday morning. We do have a few people chiming in with their underrated Brewers players, so we're going to get to that coming up here in just a skosh, Brandon. Literally just a skosh. Surveyor Sam, though, he's got Happy Dad's Day, DK. Also picking you up on 790 all the way down in Rochester. How about that?
Ooh.
I like hearing stories like that
Yeah,
where
that's carrying.
how far we go. I know intern always talks about the massive single. See, I got baseball in my mind. Signal of the AM 790. So that's awesome. Big thanks, Surveyor, and happy Father's Day to you too, buddy, and a happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Have a good one this weekend. Hopefully you get spoiled. So. Before we get to our underrated Brewers players, Brandon, hopefully we'll get this bracket all finalized so next week it can start to have some matchups and debate about it and all that good stuff. Right now, this current Brewers team, go back, they got a series win against the Blue Jays. Got a little sketchy there in that final game. But I was talking to a couple people at an Express game that night, that final game, and the common theme, Brandon, was like, can you believe they did a double steal? Like, when was the last time I heard a double steal with the Brewers and such? And that's what that spark, allowed them for 5 runs with 2 outs in that inning there. But I mean, when you look at these different Willie Adames with the 2-run home run, 2-run home run,
5-run home run, holy cow!
That's a record, man. But with the home run there too, you're starting to hear a little bit more like, hey, maybe we should sign him up and lock him up in that. Joey Ortiz, was rookie of the month in May. I mean, offensive numbers, but then, you look at, pitching. I mean, some of the numbers over their total ERA, I think they're top 10 in Major League Baseball. I mean, at what point, though, is it like, what's been said that hasn't been said already about how surprised, how fun, how this team is playing right now?
Right. At this point, like, you're kind of, there's enough of a sample size where we can see it and think, okay, well, this team is, that they can be a contender, and it's not their final form. Certainly, if they're in the spot a month and a half from now, they're going to be looking to acquire some arms, especially for the starting rotation, as they continue to just basically have the all hands on deck. I think Pat Murphy kind of even alluded to it. We're like, hey, if you can throw and you're in the organization, you're probably going to get a look at some point. We've seen that.
So my question then with that, why isn't Aaron Ashby a consistent member of that rotation?
Well, he had the really good start against Philly, but Aaron Ashby's kind of struggled in AAA. Even if you go back to his last start, it wasn't very good. Like, I think he's still because he came back from a shoulder injury, correct?
Yeah.
And shoulder injuries are, to me, they're much scarier than elbow injuries. Like, if I hear someone has Tommy John, it's like, okay, that's not fun, but you can come back from that. Shoulder injuries, it might take a little bit more ramping up. So I don't mind them being patient with him. He made they said the start against the Phillies, and he had too many walks, but otherwise, I mean, he did a good job of limiting a really good Phillies lineup. But it just seems like maybe that at the AAA level, they haven't seen as much as they would like from him to kind of give him that full time, drop you in the rotation and leave you kind of shot.
Right. Tobias Myers, do you think should? I mean, the last couple starts, he's been pretty darn good. I mean, on one hand, it's like, do you think he should remain? But then on the other hand, it's like, well, who else do they got?
Right. I think as long as he, keeps providing quality innings, he's going to get that chance. The biggest thing for him is he is susceptible to the home run ball because he doesn't. I mean, he has good stuff, but it's not like he's not blowing people away. So I mean, he gives up a good chunk of home runs, but and that's a reason that some advanced numbers don't really like him as much as maybe some other numbers will stay, because a lot of analytics really look down on giving up home runs, because obviously that's not good. If you're giving up a bunch of home runs, you're not in a good spot. But I think for him, you can still be an effective pitcher if you kind of have that home run ball to you. I think you got guys like Chase Anderson who was still bouncing around the league. I found out earlier this year when they played the Red Sox. Yeah. He pitched mop-up a game. I didn't know that. But Marco Estrada, Mike Fiers, guys like that were solid, above average pitchers that carved out, good major league careers, but they had trouble and they were susceptible to giving up home runs. So you can do that. It's just kind of, it's just a little bit tougher to work around.
Right.
But he's someone, that right now, when you look at those last 2 starts, he went 8 innings in Detroit and then 6 innings, in the Blue Jay series. That's exactly what you're looking for. To a spot where the Brewers bullpen entering this series this weekend with the Reds is in a pretty decent spot. Like, it hasn't been overworked too much recently, even with a shorter start from here and there. So I think he's gonna keep getting that chance, and that's all you can do. He was a guy that got some starts, but then went back down to AAA because it wasn't quite all the way there. He made some tweaks when he was down in AAA, and since he's gotten called back up, he's been much better. So, I've used this phrase for certain people before, but I think it applies for him. I'm not sure if he's Mr. Right, but he's Mr. Right now.
Yeah, I like that phrase a lot. Freddie Peralta, though, I was looking at his numbers from May and last couple here for being the, I'm using air quotes, ace of the staff. Has he lived up to that? Would you like to see a little bit more? He seems like he's a guy that's racking up a lot of pitches, but not a lot of innings. Like, he'll go 5 innings, but he's almost 100 pitches already over there. Is that something on him as a defense? I mean, I'm sure there's other factors involved in that, but what has been your assessment of Freddie Peralta so far?
I think he's been good. There's a lot of strikeouts in there. I think he's among major league leaders, or at least NL leaders in strikeouts. But part of that is too, he hasn't always pitched as deep into games as you would like, and it's just he's just had some kind of inconsistent games where it just hasn't been clicking for him. So, but I think he's been good. I think with the trade of Corbin Burns and obviously Brandon Woodruff being out, like, I think some people were thinking, he can just slide and do what they did. It's like, but he's a really good pitcher. But, like, that's a high bar to ask. I mean, Corbin Burns, and especially when you look, Corbin Burns has carried that over to Baltimore. He's been a nice, obviously addition for Baltimore. That's a trade right now that's worked well for both teams. I mean, the Brewers, I'm sure, would love to have Corbin Burns, but if you have Joey Ortiz and then
hopefully Dale Hall,
and Dale Hall is, he's in AAA on a rehab assignment right now, so it might not be that long before we see him, even if it's just coming out of the bullpen to start. Like, so far, that's a trade that's worked out for both teams. But with Freddie Peralta, like, it doesn't sound like much, but it's a big difference when you're a starter and you can go 5 innings versus if you're a starter and you can go 6 innings. It's only 1 inning, but that's
that's finding one less bullpen.
And that's finding a way to essentially that's finding a way to shave off 5 pitches an inning, maybe. 4 pitches an inning. That's a big difference. So, it's just something with Freddie. You don't question the stuff. He's a great competitor. Like, it's just kind of consistency for him. It can kind of come and it can kind of go.
Right.
And you're just hoping that, we can lock in like it did in the second half of last year for him, to where over a prolonged period of time, he can really show what he can do, because when he can, he is an ace. It's just that there's just been some inconsistencies in there. But, when you're inconsistent and you can still put up solid numbers, like this just kind of speaks to what your upside is.
Right. So, I mean, we're about 41%, 42%, I believe, through the season right now. You look at this division, I mean, for crying out loud, Brandon, the AL Central and the NL Central, I think, are going the opposite ways. I think a lot of us expected at this point. Right. I mean, the thing is, I was reading on Monday, MLB.com Power Rankings. They had the Twins as the 10th team, and the Twins are like 8 games behind in their own division. Right. That's just how Cleveland probably the biggest surprise right now.
Yeah, I mean, I picked them to win the division, but I didn't expect them to be like this.
Right.
And the Royals are right up there. They've taken a nice step forward.
Walk-off win yesterday.
Yeah, Minnesota's kind of been team streak. Think of the 87 Brewers team that, won, was it 12 or 15 games in a row, and then they also had like a double-digit losing streak in there. The Twins have kind of been that way. They're either hot or they're cold, but right now they're above 500, and they're a solid team. So, yeah, the AL Central, and then you compare that to the NL Central, you got one team above 500, and second through fifth is separated by like a game or a game and a half. It's, that's just kind of how it's been so far.
Right. Yeah. So, all right, let's get into it, because I think this is going to take a little bit here. Last call for your nominations for some underrated Brewers players. Now, for Brewers sense, Brandon, are we going to eliminate anybody in the Hall of Fame just to make it easy?
I think so.
Okay, so that's Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, Raleigh Fingers,
yeah.
Ryan Braun's not going to make the Hall of Fame, but we're not going to put him on there.
Yeah, but
and Christian Yelich, we're not going to put him.
Like a Sutton. What's his name?
Oh, Don
Sutton. Yeah. I mean, he didn't pitch that long with the Brewers, but still, like.
Right. Okay. We're looking at maybe like, I'll just throw a name because it's been a popular one so far. Gantner. Jim Gantner, somewhere on there.
I think that would be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Text them. Last call, because we're gonna come up with a list, and I'm really curious to get Brandon's picks on some of these because, well, Brandon's my Brewers guy, so we'll see where he goes with this. Quick break, and we'll be back. Send me your underrated Brewers players in the next couple minutes. We're going to jump right into it. Underrated Brewers players, because if you're just joining in, you're like, why are we talking about this? So all week long, we've kind of done some what we're doing a summer project, because we know sometimes summer, not a whole lot going on besides baseball and some other stuff, but we want to have some fun topics and segments and such. So what we're going to do, and we got a few, but the first one that we're doing here is we're going to see who the most underrated Wisconsin sports athlete is of all time, as voted on by you, the listeners. I always like saying that because that's like the NFL Top 100, as voted on by the players, which is whatever. But so we're taking your nominations, and whoever's gotten like the most vote getters is kind of where we're going. So I'm hoping we can get 16 in each region. So Brandon, I took your idea that you threw out last week. We got a Packers region, we have a Badgers region, we're gonna have a Brewers region, and then kind of an open one with some Bucks players and
maybe some other athletes in there. So
exactly, because I think it's fair. We could get 16 Badgers. I mean, you're talking football, basketball, hockey.
Yes, Packers. People are gonna have no trouble bringing up Packers.
And Packers one's all set. We got that one. Brewers, given the amount of texts I've just gotten, that won't be a problem either. Coming over here. So how about I give you some names before I kind of get some of your picks over there, and let's see. I got to scroll here through all the bottom here. I'm just going to go this way. Greg Vaughn, Richie Sexton, Jeremy Burnett, Ben Ogilvy, Giovanni Gallardo, Ben Sheets, another pick for Ben Ogilvy, Greg Vaughn, BJ Suroff, Gary Sheffield, Jeff Cirillo, Alex Ochoa. I remember going to a game and I just love the announcer saying that name. Cal Eldred and Dan Plesac. Got another Dan Plesac pick. Lorenzo Kane, Rob Deere, Jim Gantner, Corey Hart, Jeff Jenkins. I think that's supposed to be Jeff Jenkins. Cecil Cooper on there. Thank you for the person who put T Plush. I did have a Niger Morgan player T that year, so throw it up the T. I love that thing. So yep, throw it up the T. So and a lot of repeats after that there too. So I got to imagine maybe some of those names are some that you would throw on there,
Right?
But
Yeah.
Can I guess one for you? Can I guess one that you're going to put in here?
Sure.
Are you going to put Turnbow in this?
No.
Okay.
No. Like,
I didn't know if
he is one of my all-time favorites, but that's because it's the old theory of the brightest star burns out before its time, burns candle at both ends. He had like a year and a half.
A candle in the wind.
Yeah, he had like a year and a half where he was like good, and then it just kind of went awry.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
Like I said, there's a difference between players I liked. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So who are some of the players?
Now, I'm curious. Now, are we talking about like players that played in the majors, or just specifically what they did with the Brewers?
Players.
But I mean, like, just is this looking at specifically what they did?
I think we have to do it when they were with the Brewers.
Okay, that's fair.
And that's kind of what we did with the Packers one. So I think we have to, and that's what I did with the Badgers too. Is like, do what they did with the Badgers.
Okay.
Because obviously we had Badger players that really great in the pros, or maybe didn't do that well in the pros, or something like that.
Right.
So
like JJ Watt was a better pro than he was a Badger. Like, I mean, he was still
even though he's a top 10 pick, but still,
like he wasn't that. I mean, if he would have been anything like he was in the pros in college, he would have been a top 5, top 3 pick.
Well, then the opposite is like, obviously, Frank Kaminsky. I don't count him as an underrated player at the Badgers.
Well, he was National Player of the Year. So.
Right, exactly. So during their time. During their Brewers time.
Okay, there's a guy I'm just gonna get this out of the way first. The guy I'm absolutely gonna pound the table for like this, and he was somebody mentioned, and I'm gonna actually pound the table for this. And I'm gonna give you his resume first, and then say, wait, he played close to 1,000 games with the Brewers.
Okay.
With the Brewers, he's a career 307 hitter, on base of 383, OPS plus of 113, meaning he's above average. If you're OPS plus, if you're 100, that means it's average. So he was 13 points above average. He plays an infielder. I actually had 2 different tenures of the Brewers. Was an all-star with the Brewers. One-time all-star. Jeff Cirillo.
Okay.
I am going to pound the table for Jeff Cirillo on this because now the one thing I think the caveat, or maybe sometimes people don't, I mean, he played with the Brewers in the mid to late 90s, which is, in some ways kind of a dark period for the Brewers. Because
is he still on a telecast sometimes? Radio
no, I think he's like he was for a period of time.
Okay.
Like he was. Last I heard, I thought he was like a scout for the Mariners or something.
Okay,
like he was still involved in baseball, but he did that for a while. But he was with the Brewers from 94 to 99. Then he was traded to the Rockies, where he went on to be an all-star. Bounced around a little bit, came back to the Brewers in the middle of 2000s. Actually came back and was really good. And that was more of a part-time platoon role. In 2006, he had 319 for the Brewers in 112 games. Like I think he was platooning in the corners. But he is someone that, I think the big reason people don't talk about him a lot is because he didn't hit a lot of home runs. He only got 73 career home runs. 73 home runs with the Brewers, in 8 years. So, I mean, especially at that time when, obviously the mid to late 90s was a home run, gold mine in majors for one reason or another.
Right.
And he wasn't that guy. He wasn't a big power hitter. But to me, like, that's what I look at because I'm trying to look at guys that were like, not only were they successful, but they were good for over a period of time. Like to me, when you're underrated, you do something for a long time, and people don't necessarily notice it too much. So to me, he was the one that immediately I'm like, okay, that's when I will pound the table for.
So we've gotten a couple more just really quick because they've been two separate texters just now sent the same player.
Ooh,
Mark Loretta.
One of my favorites. You're after my heart if you're bringing up Mark Loretta.
A couple other names: David Nilsson,
the Aussie catcher,
Chris Bosio,
yeah, one of the more successful pitchers in Brewers history.
And then Casey McGee.
Casey McGee had a good few years. He's one where for a couple years in that later 2000s, he was really solid.
Kind of solidified that fifth spot. It seemed
third base. Like
right behind Fielder. You know, it was always like I felt like in those early 2000s, like who's the guy protecting Braun and Fielder?
Right,
and
he had a couple good years in there.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of I think he's a waiver wire pickup, like a guy that they just kind of got the opportunity and made the most of it for.
And then 2011, he got benched for Jerry Harrison Jr. in the postseason.
Right, he struggled. Like, I mean, that 2011 team, that team was very top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they weren't getting runs out of the top five.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a bummer. Like, that was before like Jonathan Lucroy kind of found who he was as a player. Like, if you had Lucroy a couple years later, my goodness, that's
And you're not relying on Yuniesky Betancourt.
Oh, don't get me. The one thing I will say, and people know I'm not a Yuniesky Betancourt fan.
Yep.
He had a really good postseason 2011. He hit the ball.
Yeah,
still couldn't field to save his life, but he hit that postseason. So I can't give him too much poo for that.
Poo.
But
all right.
he would be the one I would pound the table for.
Jeff Cirillo.
For sure.
Okay. So we've gotten multiple votes for Jeff Cirillo, so he's gonna make this on there. Who else do you got on here?
I mean, a guy that
would you put Mark Loretta on there?
I think he's someone you could have
because he's gotten multiple votes.
Yeah.
So
he's someone you could have in there, and I'm just trying to, like, right now I've just got a big list of numbers, so I'm gonna be kind of going off of that. And obviously it's not fully off just numbers, but I think a guy that I know a friend of mine will not like that I brought this up, but a guy that played, he's played close to 1,200 games for the Brewers, had solid numbers throughout. Don Money. I mean, that's for a bit of our older fans that may appreciate that. 270 hitter, 338 infielder for the Brewers. Above average offensive player. He's got a parking lot named after him at American Family Field. So, I'll
throw another name that just got a couple more votes here. Corey Hart, we mentioned a little bit.
I mean, I was a Corey Hart fan, so I mean, you're not going to have to talk me into that. But Corey Hart was somebody that, maybe sometimes got lost in the shuffle a little bit because, I mean, those teams of the late 2000s, early 2000s, those were Braun Fielder teams. So maybe, in some ways, Ricky Weeks kind of.
I was just going to ask Ricky Weeks.
He kind of fell in there too, but Corey Hart was, he was. I could, you can make that case. I think he was, he had good years and bad years too, which didn't always help. Like, but he had all-star years. Like,
do you put Ricky Weeks in there? He got an all-star.
He did. I would put Corey Hart before Ricky Weeks.
Okay.
And the thing that always hurt Ricky Weeks a little bit was just he got hurt a lot, and that's not his fault.
And did he? Because I remember, like, was he the prototypical? Like, I felt like he was. A lot of people gripe that he was a leadoff hitter. Like, that wasn't his spot at the top.
But I feel like in some ways the Brewers are almost a little bit ahead of the curve with that because Ricky Weeks had a good on base percentage, and he could steal bases. Like, there was a time where you kind of, your leadoff hitter, you almost felt like people kind of had to put him in a box of like that person was, they never struck out, and like they didn't really look at on base percentage as much as they look at batting average with that. Like, I think now, if Ricky Weeks was a player now, he would be. I think he was almost a better fit for today's game or the game of the last 5 or 6 years than he was then. He's just a little bit ahead of his time in that way. But you're looking at Corey Hart's numbers. Corey Hart with the Brewers, 276 hitter, 334 on base, slug more or an OPS of 824, so he's well above average offensive player. He was a guy that, as he got older, I think the defense kind of he just got older. He got bigger, as we all do. Like he played center field earlier in his career, but then he moved to right. In 2012, his last year, the Brewers actually ended up playing first base, and I kind of thought that might be the second lease on life for him because he was a tall dude, so like it kind of made sense for him to play first base. But then the injuries just caught up with him when he left Milwaukee and went to Seattle and Pittsburgh, and it didn't work. So I would put Corey Hart in there. I think he's a 2-time All-Star. So I mean, I don't know if people necessarily think of that when it comes to him. So.
All right. I'm trying to see if we got any more texts here. Not really here.
Someone brought up Greg Vaughn. Greg Vaughn played, more than
having cards of Greg Vaughn.
Yeah, I mean, there's a period. I mean, he had a massive year once he left and went to San Diego, but he bounced around a little bit. But he was, I mean, there is a period of time for like him, like a guy like a John Jaha, who was a DH.
John Jaha.
But he was still a good, solid hitter.
Yep.
I mean, I'm focusing on the hitters right now, but we'll get to the pitchers.
What about Jeremy Burnett? Somebody mentioned him.
Jeremy Burnett is an interesting case for me because Jeremy Burnett is someone that I have started to really utilize in Immaculate Grid because Jeremy Burnett's hit more than 300 home runs in his career. He became a bit of a traveler when he left the Brewers, but he was something like he's got.
I'm looking at his Brewers numbers for home run numbers. 27, 38, 33, 31, 34.
Yeah, like, and it's funny because you think of Jeremy, anyone that's a longtime Brewer fan, when you think of Jeremy Burnett, you think of a guy that, he swung really hard. He had the nickname Hurricane Burnett's because he swung so hard.
Yep.
But he only struck out like 20% of the time. Put that in perspective, Chris, that's 2% less than Christian Yelich strikes out for his career. Like, it was a different time as far as like what you think of as far as, like the kind of the perception of like strikeouts and stuff.
Right.
I would put Jeremy Burnett.
I just wrote him down, so we're going to put Jeremy Burnett on there too.
That's an interesting one. Richie Sexson, he had a few good years with the Brewers. He was a part. Played. Let me look at this up here. I gotta.
Richie Sexson or Lyle Overbay, if you had to pick one of them.
Oh, man, you are hitting me right in the childhood there. Like when I was in high school in baseball, I was number 11 in part because of Richie Sexson and Lyle Overbay. So you're right in the childhood here. Richie Sexson played 2.5 or 3.5 years with the Brewers. In Overbay, it was similar. Overbay took over for Sexson. So, man. Part of me wants to say Overbay because he wasn't as much of a home run hitter. Richie Sexson had 245 home run seasons with the Brewers. Like,
do we need to circle back on that one? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe it might be both. We're gonna get to the pitchers here too because I don't want to fill up on Brett. I don't want to fill up on all the hitters when we got some pitchers in the mix. So, man, trying to think of just kind of a quick looking at. Someone mentioned Cecil Cooper. Cecil Cooper is actually 5th all time with the Brewers in WAR, according to Fangraphs.
Yeah, I don't know if he was really underrated. Like, maybe from a national perspective.
But I think Brewers fans appreciate it, and I know I certainly do what Cecil Cooper brought to the table.
Yeah, I think maybe from a national perspective, but I think from Brewers fans, it was
they understood what you had. So kind of the same maybe with Ben Ogilvy.
So the other one I was going to say is Jim Gantner then.
Yeah, Gantner. I think Gantner survived and thrived. Longevity. I mean, he's 3rd all time in history in games played with the Brewers. Yeah, with 1,801 behind only Robin Yount and Paul Mahler, and just ahead of Ryan Braun.
Would we put Jim Gantner under then?
I think you could. Like that's just, and he was the home state guy. Like Gantner was like maybe he would be almost the perfect example of that. Even though I don't think he's necessarily overrated, locally because everyone knows. I mean, even people that aren't necessarily big Brewers fans anymore, they remember Jim Gantner.
Right.
But like he was steady over the course of a long period of time. He's got the longevity in there, and that's something I think is important.
Okay, so Bob Uecker does not count because we're doing players. And I know Texas, I know he never played for the Brewers, but he played in Milwaukee. But he wasn't good. He wasn't a good player, right?
Oh, Uecker. I thought you were going some other direction.
But no. But Uecker wasn't a good player. I mean, he even says that too, right? So I wouldn't say he was underrated. Would you? I wouldn't put him as an underrated player.
No, and even nationally, like people know and people appreciate.
I mean, he makes fun of himself on the radio for crying out loud. So, JJ Hardy. I was a big JJ Hardy fan, so I can't chime in on this one. So
I know the ladies in Milwaukee are big JJ Hardy fans too, but I mean, he played. I'm just saying the ladies like JJ Hardy.
I know, but there's stories.
Don't try to get anybody in trouble here. I'm just saying the ladies like JJ Hardy. Played 5 years with the Brewers. I mean, he had. And people I think kind of forget, like he went on to, he played a fair amount after he left Milwaukee.
Yeah. He was part of the Carlos Gomez trade.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he went to
Baltimore.
He played in Baltimore a while.
Yeah.
Like he actually played in Baltimore, I think longer than he played in Milwaukee.
Your mom is listening, by the way. She says, "Hey, Brandon, remember Hit-A-Day Overbay?"
Lyle Overday, yeah. Yeah.
And we were just talking about him, right? So,
yeah, so he's someone I think you could. I think you could. Like,
okay, so I'm going to put him down because we're going to have 16. Okay,
but we also got to get to the pitchers too.
Yep.
So.
Well, I'm thinking if we hit to 8, we got to stop and go to some pitchers maybe. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're at 6.
Okay.
6 hitters right now. Do you want to go to pitchers now so we don't miss anybody?
Yeah, we can do that. We can always come back.
Right. Do you put Ben Sheets under?
I mean, Ben Sheets by the Fangraphs measurement of WAR, which again, I'm not saying it's the be all end all. I'm just using this as kind of a guideline. Is the most valuable pitcher in Brewers history. Okay. Ben Sheets, I think, especially at that time, was nationally underrated. Like his hallmark season is 2004 season. He got some down ballot votes for the Cy Young award, but actually I think he had better numbers, but there are two things that cost him. One, it was the 2004 Milwaukee Brewers.
I was going to say it was a poo-poo team, wasn't it?
He's a four-time All-Star, so it's like, and he was an All-Star that year, but he was 12-14, which the record doesn't help. Which in more recent years we found out, like
Jacob deGrom a few years ago, kind
right.
of. You know.
But he had an ERA of 270, had 5 complete games through 237 innings. Struck out 274 batters. Struck out more than 9 hitters. Like, and I'm trying to. I'll find the numbers for that. But he was 8th in the Cy Young voting that year. Which that year it was won by Roger Clemens, who was 18 in the NL Cy Young. I mean, and Roger Clemens probably had a good stake to that crown. But by WAR. Ben Cheech was actually second that year behind the runner-up for the Cy Young, Randy Johnson.
Okay.
I think we could. I think that's one where.
Or should I put him off to the side? And see
because I think he was like. I think Brewers fans understood he was good.
But do we realize how good he was with
right?
Brewers?
Like that's one of those, where maybe you don't realize just how good he was.
Okay.
So I would feel pretty confident putting him in there.
All right, I'm going to put Ben Sheets in there then. So.
I like the suggestion somebody made earlier about Dan Flesac. I mean,
he got a few votes, so we got to put him on there.
133 career saves.
Yep.
I mean, he's the Brewers' all-time leader in saves. Like, and I don't know if a lot of people would have guessed that.
Right.
But
how many people? I'm sorry. I think he, not to pick on him, but Neil would probably say Trevor Hoffman. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. There's an inside story to that.
More than 500 innings pitched. So no, I feel confident putting Dan Flesac there.
I gotta disagree with the one time. I'm not putting Sean Markham on here.
You're just thinking about the end of 2011.
I am.
He had a really good first 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. But, and then the arm fell off. Just completely fell off.
Think of it this way though. This year the Brewers have started 12 different starters.
Mm-hmm.
I think. In 2011, the Brewers had 6 different starting pitchers that year.
That's it.
They had their 5. They had.
Can I throw one pitcher in there then? Would you, Randy Wolf? Chris Narveson?
But I don't know if they necessarily had the longevity.
Yeah.
A couple guys I'm going to throw out here that had the longevity. Moose Haas, third, and who is by WAR would be third all time, but more than 1,500 innings pitched with the Brewers, which ranks pretty highly up there all time. Product of the time, a career 403 earned run average, but then didn't strike out a lot of guys. But again, 91 wins. I mean, he's up there in innings. Like Chris Bosio is similar, where he threw fewer innings, but they were maybe a little bit higher profile, good innings. There's a bunch of like later 80s or 90s starters you can go with. Bill Wegman's a similar one. I mean, let's be honest here. The Brewers' history of pitching isn't as prolific as its history of hitting.
Mm-hmm. So we need 8 more yet.
The one guy I thought of, but I don't know if by my own he does. By my own accord, he threw more than 700 innings with the Brewers. The guy I thought of a pitcher, Doug Davis.
Okay. Doug Davis. Where's Chris Capiano on this list?
I thought about him too.
Yeah. What about Yo-Yo?
Giovanni Gallardo? Like, I think you could. Like,
That's weird. We just had 2 people text in Chris Capiano.
But the thing with Giovanni is like, Giovanni Gallardo was an ace on some teams when he wasn't an ace. Like, to me, Giovanni Gallardo was like a good number 2 or a really good number. Like, he's like Freddie Peralta.
Yeah.
A bit where like they're really good pitchers. Like on that 2011 team, Giovanni Gallardo to me was an ace. It was Zach Greinke.
Yeah.
But he was still solid for a long time. More good than great. But I think maybe I could make a case for a guy like Giovanni Gallardo.
What about Capiano?
I mean,
I'm not putting Matt Garza on this list. I'm sorry to that texter. No, I can't put
that might be another list.
What's next? Jeff Suppan?
Capuano, I think, is a bit similar to Doug Davis. I mean, they both threw in like the mid 700s for innings. Like, I think Capuano made an all-star team. He almost won 20 games one year.
Yeah.
Like,
should we put Capuano on there?
I think you could.
Do we put Yo-Yo on there?
I think so. And and if you're an older fan, I'm really trying to make sure I'm giving respect to older players too. I don't want to just fill it up with players you and I grew up on.
This texter's this one's eating at your heart right now. Are you ready for this one?
Oh boy.
Scott Podsednik.
Oh,
I knew it as soon as I saw that.
I don't know who you are, but I'm so glad you texted in. My thing with Passett, like, as much as I would love to put him in there, I'm trying to establish like a baseline of how long somebody played with the team.
Yeah.
And Pasetnik was like 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't long. Like, I'm thinking like it's got to be at least like 4 years. And Pasetnik, I don't think meets that threshold. But my gosh, that is.
Richie chimed in with a player we were talking about off the air. Dave Bush.
Dave Bush. From 1983 to 2010, the only Brewers pitcher to win a playoff game was Dave Bush. Richie and I, Scott Pasetnik played 2 years with the Brewers. Like, okay. He was not an all-star with them, although he did lead the league in steals in 2004. It was 70.
Wow.
But he became an all-star when he got dealt to the White Sox. Because remember, I believe he was he in the Carlos Lee trade, I think?
Somebody did bring up Carlos Lee too. But
Carlos Lee would be an interesting one because he didn't play with again, another one that I don't think he played with the Brewers very long. But even like you look at his career numbers and they're good. Like he was solid wherever he went.
What about Teddy Higuera?
I think I could put Teddy Higuera in there and he was someone that a bit like almost like the 1980s Ben Sheets, where like the biggest thing that slowed Teddy Higuera down was injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, he had like his first. Yeah, I would definitely put Teddy Higuera in there.
And we just literally got the same name from 2 different texters now too. Mike Caldwell.
Yeah, and he's another one that on that list I'm perusing just for names. He ranks really high up there. I mean, Mike Caldwell, does he lead the Brewers in innings pitched? No, he's second to Jim Slayton.
Okay,
but like I would. These were guys I would put in there, and like. They don't. I mean, by some metrics, they don't necessarily rank as high because they weren't necessarily strikeout pitchers. Because at that time, that just wasn't it. Like you didn't have many starter. They were pitching deep into games. Like they were, Well, look at Mike Caldwell here. Like for his career, like he had with the Brewers, he had 5 out of 6 years where he threw at least 225 innings. That's like, especially by measuring it now, you don't see that. And part of the way you did that was, I mean, you weren't trying to strike everybody out. You were pitching to weak contact. You were trying to go deep into games. So, yeah, I think those guys would definitely, I would definitely put them in there.
What about Chuck Krim?
Chuck Krim. All right, that's a good one. And again, this is one that I'm gonna, a little before my time, but I want to look this up because I want to make sure I'm doing due justice to this. But because there's. And this is almost where, like, we need somebody here that was, like, in the 70s. Like, because obviously I think starting with, like, the early 80s on is I can definitely give a...
As well as James said, nobody could buckle knees with a curveball than Chuck Krim.
There we go. I mean, pitched 5 years. Yeah, later 80s, early 90s. So, I mean... I think, I would say have him on the list there.
Okay.
Because the innings, and he was a reliever, so I mean he's not going to necessarily he started a couple games, but like he was more of a reliever. He's someone to have on. I think we'll keep him in mind.
So how about this? We have 3 spots left.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break.
Yes.
The rest of you, listen right now. You have like 3 minutes.
Get it in.
If you had to pound the table for somebody.
Yes.
If you had to pound, give me one
I'm
name.
an easily persuaded person, especially in sports debates. So
if you have to pound the table for just one name that we haven't said, here's a list so far.
Or even one that maybe has been out there.
Right.
But like, because again, we're filling these spots, and I want you guys to have influence on this as well. Like, this isn't just, hey, what do I think? This is what you think too.
Well, and these names that we've got now have been multiple votes, not just from what Brandon's name, but we've thrown out names from you, and they've gotten every name I've brought up has been mentioned multiple times. So here's the list thus far: Jeff Cirillo, Mark Loretta, Corey Hart, Jeremy Burnitz, Jim Gantner, Lyle Overbay, Ben Sheets, Dan Plesac, Chris Capuano, Giovanni Gallardo, Teddy Higuera, Mike Caldwell, Chuck Krim. We've got 3 more. Text me now who you would bang the table for that is not on this list right now. Maybe they were mentioned earlier, but like, guys, how are you forgetting about
blank?
Okay. We're going to take a break and give you a couple minutes to do that. So this has been fun. This is a lot of good ones out there. So As one texter said, if you're going to start a worst brewer ever, let's start with Supon or Kyle Lowe.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. All right, 10 minutes to the top, and we've had a lot more.
This hour has flown.
Well, a big thanks to all of you for texting in.
I'm like a pig in mud right now because there's so many people coming up with these suggestions, and even as Dan just now, I'm like, but people are making suggestions like, yeah, you know what? I could see that. Like, I could, like, people, you guys are making good, and you're making good suggestions. And when I look up like the numbers and stuff, like, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I think we were going to add BJ Surhoff to this list.
I think so. That was someone texted, and once, like, I didn't realize he played Milwaukee as long as he did. I always thought of him because of my infancy as a Brewer fan. Like, he was always he played in Baltimore, and he was the guy that used to play in Milwaukee.
I remember
he played Milwaukee like 9 years.
Well, I remember he was whenever I would play RBI baseball on Nintendo. BJ Surhoff was on there, and actually just a couple. We were talking about him off here, but I got another vote for him. Stormin Gorman Thomas. So we've gotten a few votes for him now too. So we're based off the numbers, we're going to have to add him.
I think so. I have no problem with that whatsoever. In some ways, Gorman was really he was before his time as well. I mean, that kind of power hitter that would strike out. Like, he was and played center field. Wasn't afraid to throw himself around out there.
Yep. So we got 2 more spots now.
Okay.
So we've had others. We have a John Axford pick. We have a Charlie Moore pick on there. Jeff Jenkins. Jeff Jenkins is not on this list yet, and I have his numbers up, and I was actually surprised what his career batting average is 275, which kind of surprised me a little bit.
There's so many of these guys we think of, like, they're these big strikeout, big power, power or nothing guys, but they still had decent like averages. I could be talked into Jeff Jenkins.
So, like, I'm looking at his RBIs. He's never had 100 RBIs in a season, but is that also look at the teams he played on?
That's part of it. Yeah,
on there.
More than 200, more than 200 home runs with the Brewers. Played more than 1,200 games. Like, again, I'm going to be biased towards guys that played that were in Milwaukee a while.
Yep. So I'm gonna. We've got 2 spots. I'm writing down some names that have gotten multiple votes, but we got to narrow it down here. Okay. So we've got a few minutes here. I'm going to put Jenkins on there. So here we've gotten multiple votes from these guys: Rob Deere, Jeff Jenkins, Billy Spires.
Ooh, that's an. I just like that name just takes me back hearing Billy Spires.
So that's where we're at right now with some, and then we'll throw Charlie Moore in there too.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 spots and 4 names right now. We're debating between.
Yeah. Were there any other pitchers?
I don't think so. Everybody loves the position ones.
But like I said, like, the Brewers have a better history of position players than pitchers.
Yeah. Actually, our good buddy Richie chimed in with one player, Ricky Bones.
Ricky Bonus. Yeah.
So all right. So are we gonna leave it to those 4? And we got 2 spots.
And I think we just have, like, text in people.
Yeah. So here's your 4. Because we're running out of time here. We could probably go for another hour for this.
I know I could.
So we're running out of time. Here's your 4. We need 2 more. So vote for your 2 out of these 4. Sound
fair.
Jenkins, Rob Deere, Billy Spires, Charlie Moore. Right?
Did you put Gorman Thomas on there?
I already got Gorman on our list.
Okay.
Yep. Gorman's on there already. He's part of the top 16.
Okay.
So we got 2 open spots. Those are the final 4. Have to pick between those 2.
Yes.
Give me 2. The top 2 vote getters are going to be getting these last 2 spots. Yeah. Yep. So while we wait for your votes, should we do some picks and predicts? Really quick, picks and predicts. I guess this kind of is picks, isn't it? We're picking players for this, but picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire, located right next to the Banbury Place. Hey, maybe take Dad out for a Man Cave Lights at the Elbow Room, right? Watch some of the games there. Take Pops out for Father's Day, enjoying some Man Cave Light there. Is the NBA Finals going Game 5 or not?
Well, considering I'm somebody that picked the Mavericks.
Yeah, how you feeling about that, bro?
How you feeling about Edmonton? you and I each kind of had that. Ooh, we'd like to have that one back.
That was good. That was good.
I think Dallas gets 1. But then Boston wins it back home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel confident about it, but like Boston's a better team, but like I don't know if they're like head and shoulders, knees and toes above.
Mm-hmm.
I like we've even seen series where like even when a team is much better than the other one, the losing team wins a game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Dallas kind of empties the chamber in this one and they get one.
All right. Boston sweeps. I'm gonna go Boston sweeps.
Although
I'll tell you right now, Jenkins is gonna win one spot.
Okay.
So we got down to one.
Now remember, you're voting for Jeff Jenkins, not Brett Favre in this one.
So I'll tell you right now, it's tied between Moore and Rob Deere.
Oh.
So sorry, Billy. You're out of it. But so it's between Rob Deere and Moore. So you got like 5 minutes.
We got to the top of the hour here.
Yep.
And then we're cutting it off.
Jenkins is in. Don't have to text me Jenkins. So it's either Moore,
Rob Deere,
or
Charlie Moore.
Yep.
Come on.
Tied up right now. So Brewer series though. Reds, how many wins?
I'm 2 or 3. I mean, that's usually the go-to for me. But like, I like the way the pitching matches up for them in this series, and they're going to need it because the Reds have got some hitters. Ellie De La Cruz. Hopefully, they can keep him from making Sports Center at the Brewers' expense.
Yeah. You know why, by the way, too, why this is tied for between Moore and Rob Deere? G-Man voted for Rob Deere and Charlie Moore.
Oh, well, even if he didn't, it would have been tied too.
Yeah. So, but all right. Moore's got a 1-vote lead right now. So, but I think it's the same person that's voting for Charlie Moore. But you got a couple minutes here. I'd like to let's do 2 minutes. Because I would like to announce what the 16 are before we get off the air.
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to do it. And now it's back tied up. So we're going to set the timer. I got a clock right here. Okay, minute and a half from now. You got to text in 715-830-1912, or we will literally flip a coin to see if it's going to be Deere or Moore. So, all right. Man, this has been, I'll be honest, I'm surprised with as many participation we've had on this one.
Was it like this for the Packers?
No. This one has gotten more feedback with it.
Nice.
Which I'm surprised at, to be honest with you.
I am too.
I'm very surprised at with this one.
I did I looking at that Packers list, even not as a Packer fan, I kind of had a smile because there was definitely some, I remember that guy, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is going to be fun.
This has been a really, really good one. So keep this coming. Keep them coming. Oh, we got a minute left, and Rob Deere is up by a couple. So doesn't look like it's going to go to the coin flip here. Yeah, I think it's going to be we're getting a bunch in right now, dude. So it looks like it's going to be Rob Deere.
Let people know that number one more time.
715-830-1912. Maybe about 45 seconds. Because I would like, how about this? I'll announce the top 15. Why, are you trying to get somebody to stack the ballot box right now?
No, I'm not.
No. Well, thanks for but we've gotten some more names on here that is not on the list. We had to narrow it down. So, here's your top 15, and I'll tell you who the 16 one is. Stop. Okay, that's like Derek Turnbow.
I just had to text in.
Yeah. All right. Jeff Cirillo, Mark Loretta, Corey Hart, Jeremy Burnitz, Jim Gantner, Lyle Overbay, Ben Sheets, Dan Plesac, Chris Capuano, Giovanni Gallardo, Teddy Higuera, Mike Caldwell, Gorman Thomas, BJ Surhoff, Jeff Jenkins, and just to reiterate, these names were brought up by you, the listeners, and voted on by you, the listeners. So if there's somebody on here that you're like, you guys are idiots, you didn't put them on there, you should have texted it in.
Yeah.
And we went with multiple votes.
Yeah, we went with the most popular names.
Rob Deere.
Boom.
Rob Deere is the final one on there. So there you have it. That's the 16. That was fun. That one was a good one there. So huge thank you for everybody who texted in on that one. That's what I'm talking about. That's what makes mornings fun when we got that on there. We're done, guys. We don't have any more. We're done. We got the full 16. So, all right. We're going to set up the bracket starting on Monday. So make sure you're following along on Facebook and such so you can see the Packers region, the Brewers region, the Badgers region. Stop Brandon with George Contreras and the open region, which will You're funny. Pat Listash was already mentioned earlier, so you don't get that.
At this point, I am spamming in the text-to-talk line right now with random Brewers.
Have a wonderful Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We'll be back at it Monday morning, just past 6 a.m. Talk to you then.